Not like, I don't know, I didn't think you'd sneak in. How are you, buddy? You're glad you're good. Too late. Yeah. Yeah, well, the video this morning is this guy, I think last night. So last night was a long one, Joe's long-winded for sure. You know, we're a thought, then, you know. Yeah. Get up here. Yeah. Get you anyone a bottle of water? You guys all good? You got coffee in the corner too as well? You want a bottle of beer?
It moves too, it says like. Yeah. I'm going to. And I had to think, I have over there, but not for some.
Okay, I'm stand up, stretch my legs one last time.
Yeah.
How did you?
I was gonna do it. They're only comments. It's fair.
Jeremy, how you doing? Good, good to see you.
To see you.
First. Good to see you.
Good to
As
see you
well.
as well.
Appreciate it. Yeah, 100%. I think we're gonna be kind of space, so maybe more sure. Yeah. Okay.
Like a space on.
It's neat.
It's like church, everybody's in the background.
But it's great right now because we have this expensive. Hi. Right.
My own power, and we can have a battery if we want. I think so. Maybe it'll be.
No, mine's been dying a lot lately. 'Cause I really tested them and I'm sure. If you're
Good, I'm good. How are you? Good, 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 good. Here yet, and there's somebody upstairs. Now we've got. Hey, Bill. And scoot. Thank you for that. Hey, Spencer asked for me, and he said so much, but I didn't say so. Any. In fact, it's really bad. So many. Isn't it? So it could be considered. So just, I just. It's gonna be even. I didn't even know if it's time to bed. Yeah. Hey, I have to talk fast, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did,
yeah.
but I did put things in. So that I can. Little bit, you know, let's. That big deal, conform. Instead of evens. Okay, okay. I just got nervous because of this. A lot of things that was discussed and sometimes we go this way, then we go this way, and I guess my brain just goes, oh, it's good. I'm just gonna land on that one. I'm just making choices. How see you? No, it's like it's a dance. It's like, it's the best small things.
And that's what I think.
See, quick.
You guys, it was gonna be a long meeting, and I didn't tell you. It's gonna be a long.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hope you have.
Yeah.
And then she was given a position. And another.
Tearing down a theater. Fine. No, you were having all kinds of trouble, but they finally agreed to do it. Yeah. For itself. Life with me. Good. If we're coming back pretty much. So, we're gonna check. Yep. You go over here now. Oh, they didn't be there, they shouldn't be there. Now, that's all good. Well, as long as. Make sure they think about doing. But you know, they don't.
Less stress.
They don't. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they. And it's a long, yeah, it's a day. So. But we put. You got my. Nice back and. I've been really. Follow on that.
Sometimes you kill me. You can't say that, you can't do that. Oh, my. I couldn't have picked any less effective pen in my bed. Judy. Oh, gosh, no, city. I didn't want his kids to check out the 89 guys. That's what I'm saying. It's a picture bad. This is my favorite. We love those. Okay.
And they're all about.
Maybe that's just what we go with today.
So why not? You grab that and bring so many without different messages. It's shaking up the message. Static. Sign element. Outside.
It was. Everyone's everyone's.
Well, they're the same, they're two different ones.
Paul, Chuck, Harris.
Yes.
Okay. And Chuck, do you have the PDF that was sent to you yesterday? Okay, you got it? Okay. Welcome, everybody. So it's kind of nice to be the center of gravity today here. On the 76 projects, very exciting. The last evening, many of you, and some of you were there, know that they talked about incentives, and we're going to talk about some of those today. I think Holly was there, and they did a fabulous job last night of educating the aldermen. I appreciate everybody's time. I think we're going to call to order, and then I think what we'll do is go around and everybody introduce everybody. But first, let's start with prayer. So Ted, will you pray for us?
Real quick. Hey, Father, thanks for a great day here in Branson, Missouri. And we invite you into this room as we discuss the future of a huge project for our community that affects so many people, from businesses to design professionals to the visitors that will come here to enjoy a great place to do respite as they recreate and recreate in Branson, Missouri. Father, thanks for each one here, for the impact they've made, for their work, for their spirit of cooperation, and all about the future and all about you. Father, we love you and praise you. Just name it.
Amen. So Paul, if you will, call the roll.
Sure. So Gail is present. Chuck,
He's online. Yeah, he's online.
Chuck's here. Brian,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Billy,
Here.
Larry,
He's absent.
okay, and Kathy.
Is absent.
Okay.
Okay, we have a quorum. So let's do just that. Holly, let's start with you. Let's introduce, please.
I'm Holly Dodge. I'm the attorney for the city of Branson, so I'm here on behalf of Branson.
And Ted Martin, I serve with the city as the fire chief. Yeah.
Lisa Rao, I serve as Communications Director for the City of Branson.
Matt Bryan, City of Branson, Engineering and Public Works.
Mark Lucy with the City of Branson. Newman with the Teddy County Transportation Advisory Board and also Reach Temple Real Estate.
Okay.
Tom Beck with Beck Museums, or world's largest toy museum company.
Craig Rhodes, I'm with Varia, the consultant team. I'm a landscape architect. I'm Spencer Jones. I'm also with Great River. Mike Beatty, with Great River. Cody Stice, Planning.
Amanda Ross, Planning and Development, Active Director.
Harley Coulter with the Utilities. Adam Black, also with Utilities. Ethan Highland, Assistant Director of Utilities.
Eric Schmidt, police chief here.
Jason works for Alex News here, to keep you honest.
I think that's our job. So,
Which we are recording.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming.
yeah, we're recording.
Okay. Thanks so much.
We are. Ann McDowell, Creative and Communications Assist to the Board.
Brian Cossaboom, Dolly Parton Stampede. Steve Presley, Presley's Theater, Branson Visitor TV on the board.
Gail Meyer with Meyer Hotels.
Billy Ong, retired, Ocean Family, CID Board.
Alex Gerard, Chief of Staff, City of Branson. Thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it.
Sheree Pfeiffer, Finance Director.
Mike Woods, Public Works and Engineering Director.
Sienna Moser, Office Specialist, Public Works and Engineering.
Jeremy Jackson, I'm with Great River Engineering, the 76 Design Collective, which is comprised of Great River and Varia today.
Thank you all for being here. So we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. You should have all received, board should have received the minutes from our last meeting in December.
Motion to accept.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Little same sign. And then Sheree, we're gonna let you go through the financials and then we're gonna get into the
right, we have 2 months of financials I'm gonna cover, so let's do November first. And I think everybody has the information. Let me hit that one too. All right, so for November, year-to-date revenue, we have $5,257,771. Year-to-date expenses, we had $767,621. After the transfers, we ended with an increase in the balance of $3,867,406. So we begin the year balance with a fund balance of $9,869,662, and we ended the year with this is the end of November, $13,737,068. You go to our next sheet, it's the balance sheet. And on the balance sheet, you'll notice we have cash of $12,699,815. We have accounts receivable of $1,050,356 for total assets of $13,750,171. We have liabilities of $13,103 with a net fund balance of $13,737,068. We go to our next page, it kind of shows where the cash is located. So in our operating account, that's the central bank account. As of the end of November, we had $5,585,201.50. And in our investment account, we had $7,110,441. And then on the next page is our sales tax, and this is sales tax received report. So this will be, if you look, there'll be sales tax received that we received as of the month of December. So it will actually be on October's activity. And if you look year to date, we ended the year with a reduction of 3.2%. But if you look at the prior year, it was an increase of 9.6%. So we're coming off of a really good year. So I think all in all, it still looks pretty good. And that's all I'm going to cover. You have the rest of the detail for the AP and the general activity for November. And we'll go to December. You ready? You ready? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So for the end of the year-to-date revenue, we had $5,735,322. Year-to-date expenses, we had $827,381. And then after all the transfers, we ended with an increase of $4,230,402. So again, we started the fund balance in January was $9,869,652. And we ended with a fund balance of $100,063. On the balance sheet, we have $13,113,287 in cash. Receivables is a little over $1 million, with total assets of $14,163,643. For the liabilities of $63,580, with a fund balance of $14,163,063. And then if you go to the next page, in the bank account, so the operating account as of the end of December, we had $5,974,105.11. In the investment account, we had $7,139,182.33. So that totals for $13 million. And then I'm just going to tell you right now, as of the end of January in the bank account, I did transfer $1 million from investments to operating to help cover the payment to the city of Branson. So right now, as of the end of January, we have $7,398,135. Because I'll cover that in a second. Okay. And then if we go to the sales tax sheet, for January year to date, you can see. And so this will be actually November activity that where we received the tax in January. There's a 2.5% increase. And if you look at prior year, that's actually on top of a 26.7% increase that we had the prior year. So it's good growth. And then on our next sheet is that sheet that y'all asked me to make last time. Yeah, I think y'all got to look through it. It's just the My Business type. And this is a filing report, so it's different than the received report. This will be the taxes that the business filed with the state of Missouri during these time frames. Okay, so there's a 2-month lag between those two reports. And then the last page is the reimbursement to the city of Branson. So our outstanding amount due is $6,274,074. And if you guys are ready, I can transfer that money, or I can pay the city of Branson. We have in operating $7,398,135.71.
So I think we approved it, and I think Alex, you and Kathy said you wanted it January 2.
Well, I just wanted to get one more, we're good to go. And
You're
that's,
good to go.
okay, thank you. And that's all I have, unless you have any
You can
questions.
leave it in there and let draw interest as long as you.
Yes, sir.
I did have a question on the, as far as the money in the bank on that.
Yes.
The, at Central Bank right now, is that an interest bearing at all? Is
Yes,
it money
yes,
market?
it's 4.05%.
Okay, so it is on that.
Yes. And then most of the other ones are in 4.75, or some of them are in 5% CDs, so it's pretty good.
Okay. Are we, is the city allowed as far as like with Edward Jones and local, what is the?
I have an investment RFQ actually coming due at 3 today, and I'm looking for a new investment
Yeah,
advisor.
just FYI, you know, they're on the
Yeah.
money market right now, they're paying 5.2.
Yeah,
on,
so
and the money's accessible,
Yes,
so.
sir, yes, sir, I'm looking at one, I will be looking at.
Okay, all right, good, yes, all right.
So I just want to point out that, and I'm hoping she does this now, but the sales, the calendar sales that I asked her to do. So what it shows is in 2022 in the CID, there was $532 million worth of sales. January through November of 23, so it doesn't include the month of December, right?
Right.
There was 441 million in sales. So, and then the breakdown of where that's coming from.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful.
It was, yeah, and, you know, I don't know if every month or quarterly or whatever, it's.
Well, now I got it set up, it was the hardest part was attaching
Yeah.
businesses to
Yeah.
different business types, but I can create it monthly for you.
Yeah, just kind of keep track of where things
It's
are.
also a way for us to baseline as we do things, how that can grow.
How it impacts
Yeah,
the
'cause, you know,
area.
we're telling people that the sales tax is supposed to go up because of the expenditure, and so then we'll find out for sure, right?
Yeah.
So, any other questions related to the financials? I'd entertain a motion to approve financials.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so what we're gonna try to do, and obviously you see all this work on the boards and the walls, and Jeremy is going to give us a presentation, and then after that presentation, we're gonna take about 15 minutes. Everybody can get up, you can look at more detail, staff's gonna be around, you can ask more questions and come back. And I think I may ask Ann to add on to what I'm about to say, but, you know, we've spent hours and hours and hours talking about this project. And what I would hope we don't do, unless you have a gym, is rehash old stuff. What we want to try to do is figure out, and that doesn't mean that input is not good. What we want to do is try to figure out how this becomes the springboard of understanding, as well as a springboard to now taking this public and letting the world know what it is that all this work that you all have done is going to do. And just the general reminder for all the people in the room, the board basically approved a design up to $32 million. So I hope that's still there, because that's what we planned. And so we expect that this will be $32 million. And then the goal is that, and maybe I should let Michael talk about later on what the timeline is, or Jeremy, what the timeline is. So do you want to add anything to that?
Maybe just one thing quickly. I've done sales and marketing my whole life, and I've built a lot of community advocacy for various programs and projects. What I know for sure is that it starts here. It starts at the core of any project, and it spreads from there. So this is the group that needs to become the strongest advocates for this project. And I'm hoping we go a long way towards that today, because it trickles out from here. It's like the opposite of an onion. It's going to start in the middle and it's going to spread throughout the community. And I'll talk a little bit later about how we're taking it to the state of Missouri. And we need to be enthusiastic advocates for this program in the next few hours, I hope.
Okay, and just note, welcome Lena Hughes from Hughes Brothers, and I don't remember your name.
Right.
Yep. Okay, thank you for being here. So, okay, Jeremy?
So Paul, I will need to be able to be the presenter.
Okay.
Am I ready?
Bear with me. Let's see.
Sure.
Jeremy, are you at your own computer?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm online with you, and I'm here. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But is that your computer?
Yeah.
Try that.
Sure.
Does that work?
Let's have a look. Looks like I can. I think so. Yeah, look at that. That's exciting. All right, y'all. Let's do it. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today and go through a little bit of the history of the project and to bring the master plan for you to take a little bit closer look at. I'm going to go through this presentation and give you a few reminders, just because we've slept since the last time we were together. And after I do those reminders, that'll kind of bring us up to speed. I'm going to go through the corridor that you see on the wall, and I'm going to give you some ticklers. These are the kind of things that these lines mean, and this and this and this. And that way, that should kind of pre-answer some of the questions that you might have. And it'll make it easier when we get up after that to take a closer look at the boards. All right. So this project has been around actually for a while, right? Back in 2014, City Council adopted an ordinance, and that ordinance adopted the master plan for all of the segments, and it also adopted the elements, the essential elements. On the screen, you see these essential elements, and I know that the writing is a little bit small, but I will kind of go through them. We have managed in the design that you see on the wall to achieve success with each one of these elements, and we're pretty proud about that. Road configuration, it's a 3-lane road with a wide center lane that accommodates actually is a turn lane and serves as a turn lane, and we have managed to get some medians in there to provide safe crossings for our pedestrians. We'll talk more about that later. Transit was actually removed by the client last January when we were together, after being together a number of times and asking about pull-off and bus loading and that sort of thing. We decided against that for these two segments. The promenade, while is not 15 feet wide, is an 8-foot multimodal pathway on the east side of the street and can accommodate a whole variety of people walking or what have you. Undergrounding the utilities, we've been working very hard on designing those utility chases, and I think that we're in really great shape. That part of the project has been moving forward for some time. Wayfinding, amenities, and unique and fun experiences we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail as I go through, but all of those things are addressed. Access management was something that was called for back in 2014 and has been a consistent desire. We have accommodated that, looking at conflicts and tried to reduce the conflicts to make a safer environment for the pedestrians, and looking at changing this road that was once a highway, now into a city street, and now into a complete street, which addresses getting people out there walking on those sidewalks. And then finally, the adjacent development. Looking at design guidelines, you may remember long ago when we first met, we talked through some of the things about design guidelines and zoning, and we presented you with a lot of options. In the meantime, the other thing that we've done is we have forwarded to the city for their consideration a complete street ordinance that would be helpful potentially, and so that's under consideration. We're hopeful. So as a reminder, we're talking about segments 1 and 2, starting from Shepherd of the Hills Expressway all the way to the Ferris wheel. And let's talk about our accomplishments to date. So we started our project back in 22 when we received a notice to proceed in July. And right away, we got right down to it and we said, hey, we need to hear what kind of work has been accomplished so far. So the ECID presented the work that had been accomplished to us. We spent a very significant conceptual 2-day charrette with stakeholders, and I'm looking around the room and a lot of you were there. And it's so exciting to see you again because that energy was really great. And that's what we're hoping to bring to the table again today. We took information back, we put it through the design filter. We came back to you in January of 23, and we had a 1-day charrette showing you where we had landed. We took additional information and we took that back to under advice and began to really hone in on the concept. We took the concept to the ECID design advisors in January, and we landed on the ribbon concept. The ribbon concept was a huge thing for us because it gave us something to design around. It gave us a theme, something that would unify our corridor, and we felt very, very good about that. In the meantime, February till September, we had presented a number of times the concept and the costs. We talked about that at several meetings, and then we kind of landed on the idea that we really need to figure out, like, what's the budget really going to be here, right? And so we've been through those discussions. We got a plan of finance together. In the meanwhile, we've been making application on several funding applications, and we were awarded $500,000 through the TAP funding. In July, we made that application, and then we found out in the fall. So in the meanwhile, we've been working on infrastructure design, looking at our utility and our water line in particular, because everything that goes under the ground in a large area like that impacts anything that's going to be on top of it, right? So we needed to get that right, and so we've been working on that very hard. We submitted our utility and water line information through the Citizen Serve process, which I thought was a brilliant move, allowing all the city staff to have an opportunity to get in and look at, what it is that we're beginning to do. We're piecing those things together and submitting those things bit by bit. But we've been getting comments back from the city and have a response to comments that are going to be uploaded for everything that we've received so far. In the meanwhile, we have developed the right-of-way deliverables, and so those are ready to go. And so right-of-way negotiations, I think right-of-way will begin sometime soon, and we are here for the DD presentation. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. I tried to talk really fast, but anyway. All right, so here we go. So let's dive into this master plan. What's this thing all about? So if you look at this end of the corridor, on the board, you're going to see that there's a legend. Let's just talk about what the legend shows so that when you do get up, you'll have a little bit easier time, right? So the right-of-way, you may recall that we were asked by you to stay as much as possible to stay within the right-of-way. And so it's important for us to know where the right-of-way is. And it's also important to know that we still do need some easement for utility, purposes and that sort of thing as well. So the right-of-way is actually the bold line with 2 dashes that you'll see. As a reminder, the right-of-way in our corridor does vary from 60 foot wide to 90 foot wide. It goes 60, then it's 75, and then it's 70, and then it's 90, and then it's back to 75. And so that's kind of tricky when you're trying to do a streetscape because you can't be just 100% consistent. So we had to move our ribbon through this corridor, and that was we had some ability to do that by some of the design principles that we were following. The signs for each of the businesses are extremely important. Those are shown in yellow, and so anytime you see a yellow bit on the rendering, that's going to be a sign. And we worked around all of the signs. We've designed around them. We have no signs that we've identified for relocation at this time. And that's a pretty big statement to make because this is a mile long. It's a long corridor. The concrete sidewalk, which is a broom finished concrete, 8 foot wide or 5 foot wide on the west, is going to be shown in this gray color. But we do have some specialty pavement areas. Those specialty pavement areas allow us to break up the line of sight, the eye, as you're moving down through the corridor. It may call attention to an area where you're going to have an opportunity to sit, or there's going to be something that pops up that's a surprise. And so that's shown in a darker brown. The specialty pavement on the roadway, which we'll see here in a moment, is indicative of a couple of other things, and we'll talk about those. Plant beds are shown in a darker green, sort of like the green areas that here, but then the lighter green is a turf. And some of the plantings that we're talking about are upland prairie plantings where you don't have to mow the grass, whether it be a buffalo grass that only gets 10 inches tall, but it looks very soft. It sort of moves with the wind. You can mow it if you want to, but it would make the corridor look very different as you move down through the corridor and have that at the edge along with the plant beds and perennials and such. All right. Still are looking at our ribbon concept and showing a one loop over the road sculptural item. Oops, sorry, going back. Oops, no, I didn't. Here we go. So I want to call your attention to some of the nodes that are called relaxation nodes. We've got some areas where we've got some decorative Core-10 fence and Ozark Creek dry creek bed and plantings, and we're gonna move through our corridor and sort of zoom in. The relaxation zones or the relaxation nodes often are going to have areas where you can sit. You'll notice the materials that we've selected here are wood type materials. They're not wood per se, but they're wood type materials. They have a wood look. We are promoting porch swing structures where people can literally sit and swing instead of just sitting. We also are using if we have the opportunity, we're using some short walls so that more people can sit on the top of the walls without having to have separate benches out there. And then we do have some separate seating areas where folks can sit and gather. You can see the change in pavement in these areas makes them feel like they're different. This is a Core-10 planter that's shown right here. You may recall that the Core-10 or Core-10-like material was something that we landed on in terms of materials we were suggesting, and we are staying consistent with that. Moving down to this segment, there's upland prairie, and then there are areas where we want to change that. And in the Ozarks, you can go down the road and change your environment immediately. You go up on top of the hill, then you come down to the bottom of the hill, there's a creek or a dry stream bed. We want to do the same thing within our corridor. We want to use short berms that you literally pass through. Now, when I talk about a short berm, I'm talking about 30, 36 inches tall with plantings. it makes you feel the space without being too impactful. You can still see what's going on all around you. In the Ozark Dry Creek bed, you're going to see stone and different types of plantings, different types of grasses in those areas. And then moving over to the train plaza and the toy museum area, we talked a lot about this area, and we'd like to capitalize on the idea that they have something very cool out there, but create a space where families might want to gather right there using special paving materials, creating a railroad path and putting some porch swings in that area, along with some cattail chimes and things like that kids can play with. This is the area of a pedestrian crossing, and that pedestrian crossing allows people to come from one activity area on the west side, say the Bigfoot, area, across the street to the world's largest toy museum, and then on down the street where there are other things going on.
This is actually a 1900 actual steam locomotive. That's a Cannonball number 9. It was in service down in Tennessee and relocated to the toy museum, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And so it's an actual locomotive, former operating locomotive.
We love that.
With tender.
We love that. It would be a nice way. I think putting people in that environment allows them to experience that amenity in a close and personal way, I think. And
families and children already in the museum are climbing all over that locomotive.
Absolutely.
It's a good photographic station.
Mm-hmm. All the selfies. I mean, we're trying to have that. We're trying to create those opportunities where people can gather, right?
That's a good highlighting. That's a very good highlighting.
So now we're moving on down the street. Here's Pat Nash Drive. And as you can see on the other side, we have another Ozark Dry Creek bed and planting area. Again, upland, lowland, trying to change it up so that you're not seeing exactly the same thing. We don't have a lot of space to work with, and so we're trying to put things in the space that work for us, and that's one of those places. Pedestrian crossing in this area. In this little highlight here, you can see that the actual median itself, the planted median, is quite narrow. And what you're going to find is that we'll plant that with, soft grasses, maybe perennials, and probably will be an opportunity for us to have a sculptural item that gives us some dimension in the middle, something that's kind of easy and narrow, but helps us with our theme. And so the ribbon, corten, steel can occur there. While at the same time, we've allowed for an apron, a drivable apron that emergency vehicles can mount. And that was important. That was an important part of what came of discussions with the city and with emergency staff. And we made a vow that we wanted to protect pedestrians. The best way for us to do that in the crossing areas is to give them a very specific crossing. We call these Z crossings. You're crossing the street. You are forced, by the way it is designed, to turn and look at oncoming traffic before you cross the other part of the street. So these are crossings that work well in environments where there's a lot of vehicular traffic. And so we're very pleased with where these are located. We feel like they're in places where people want to cross, and we feel good about those.
Those still will have some type of lighting too, as far as?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a concern out there right now, so.
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
The ones that are there, people ignore, so.
We have street lights, and we talked about this before. I think I've raised this issue a couple of times, but the actual street lights that we're proposing are very utilitarian, sort of blend to the background. They're not intended to be a design element. They're intended to be an infrastructure item. And I can tell you that I think you all know this, that I went out personally and took light level readings and almost, people don't stop when you push. And so, it's a little bit scary, but the thing is, the light levels are sort of dim, and so our intention is to make sure that there's plenty of light, but we want to give you as much control as you want over the street lights. So at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't have to use the same energy level because you don't have the same traffic. And so the light levels can come down at that point, but they have sensors. So whenever they sense someone walking or someone driving, the lights will come up. I don't know if you all have been in urban areas where those are used, but that's what we're recommending. And then we do have pedestrian lights that will go in the plaza areas. And we've not gotten into the detail of those, but those pedestrian level lights are only used there. We're not putting them anyplace else, just in areas where we have a little more space.
Thanks.
Good. All right.
So you're saying the lighting going up is at the pedestrian level, or is that
I'm sorry.
the impression for the driver? I mean, the driver's the one who has the liability.
The street lights are for the street.
Okay.
Yeah, they are also going to light the patterning is intended to light the street and light the sidewalk.
But that's not as an indicator for the driver. It's for assistance C for the pedestrian.
It's the street lights are for the vehicles. Street lights are for vehicles and to some degree, sort of in secondary sense for the pedestrian, of course. But in the plaza areas, we'll do additional lighting, and that will be a different light type altogether. Yeah.
The city has asked for hawk crossings at this, and we proposed it multiple times and asked for the board to support that at these crosswalkings and have some ideas that could move you forward for safety.
And that was my concern is the current, which you're bringing up, is the current concern is, do we have sufficient and adequate?
There's not, yeah.
And so that needs to be addressed. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are those?
I think you're saying you support that.
Yeah,
right?
very much so.
So are those, Michael, is the ideas that you created, is that addressed?
They're not addressed at this point.
Okay. So consideration wise, given how important pedestrian safety is, I guess what is the proper manner to ensure that?
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Hold that thought. I want her to get through her presentation and then you have the opportunity to get up and.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So we're still really talking about the crossing. I do want to focus on this crossing at the east end. We nudged this crossing kind of in a work session to be here and to be a median that has a protected pedestrian crossing in it. And in this case, there's already an at-grade crossing right there. That at-grade would shift down and become a protected pedestrian crossing in this location instead.
So the scope would be changing just a little bit, grabbing the one from the last phase and moving it over. You're truly making all the crosswalks the same safety factor all the way through.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look at this activation zone. This is in front of the lodge and has probably the most complex series of activities and things going on. You can see that you can see one of those pedestrian crossings right here. And as we go to the next slide, you can see a little bit of a close-up of what's going on with the piano key walkway and a bit of a plaza. We're using the grade, we're using the lay of the land or the grade or the berming and boulder outcrops and plantings and so forth to craft a space that begins to make you feel like you're in your own, space between a parking lot and a street. It's kind of a challenge, but we have a little bit more space here, and so we're doing that. As we move further, the wavy walkway, just kind of a fun place for folks to experience, for kids to play. This is actually envisioned to be artificial turf in this particular area because we do see that will receive an awful lot of foot traffic. Awesome. So just taking a look at the street sections, what you see in these sections, represented in these sections, is a typical roadway section where you might have an existing parking lot with, with a bit of a planting bed, trying to soften the back of our experience with a relaxation node. This is where the 8-foot sidewalk is. This would be at one of those relaxation nodes anyway. You can see that under the ground, we've got our utility chase, and it's right here at the back of the right-of-way. And then the road with a southbound lane, a northbound lane, and the turn lane in the middle. This is the typical roadway section for the majority of our roadway. That's what it looks like. We've got a little dab of things going on one side and a little dab of things going on the other side. When we are in areas of the pedestrian crosswalks, it looks a little bit more like this, where you have the utility chase on either side, a median where you can see we've got a little whirligig in the middle there, a little sculptural item in the middle. This is the emergency vehicle bypass, which is a lane in and of itself. And that's on either side of the planted median, and then softening the front with a plant bed and then walkways. All right, just one more look at that. And again, you're going to have an opportunity to chat with us at the boards. And we do have some sticky notes. And so we can, we don't want to take a whole lot of time when we're at the boards, because we don't want to take your whole meeting, but we do have some sticky notes. So if you see somebody with a bright yellow sticky note and a pen, and you want to leave a comment on the board, you leave it right on the drawing. So if you've got something to say and you can't seem to get there quick enough, just make sure that you do. Just a reminder, this is what we're after. This was our guide. This was our charge. And this is what we've attempted to do, is check all these boxes. Let's talk a little bit about the budget. The design budget was identified at $32,500,000. We are currently at the design development level. That's 60% documents. Construction documents are separated into sheet series. And so we have each of the sheet series contains about 30 sheets or sometimes more. And we have turned in utility corridor, water line, road and drive, and sidewalk. We have a number of sheet series left. And when I say turned in, we've actually put those into Citizen Serve, and those have been going through the system, and we're receiving comments back on those. We are still on track to meet the budget. We feel good about that. And a detailed check of the estimation of probable costs will occur at the preliminary design level, which is the 90% document level. And that's when we'll do a full breakdown. As you can imagine, when this project goes out to bid, the line items will be a little bit crazy. And so that bid form will be nuts. And we will look at it from that perspective, just like we did before, and identify where we are on the costs. And so then we get to the all-important timeline question. And so what you see 2 February to August timeline items. The first is boxed in red because we don't really have as much control over that. And so we put a huge emphasis on that on the front end, because we know that in the next 6 months or so, there's an opportunity for the right-of-way discussions to be going on, which are really easement Thank you. I love it. We should do that in unison, right? So it's really an easement. We have some temporary construction easements. We also have some easements that we need for certain items to happen, and certainly for the utilities to be constructed. But those discussions have to occur, and the easements have to be obtained. There's also the utility plans of adjustment from the utility companies that have to come back to the city. and the city will need to negotiate the deals with those guys. In the meanwhile, we'll still be working on, developing, going through our design funnel and continuing to develop some things. We do anticipate that there might be some minor adjustments that come out of right-of-way acquisition. And so that will impact the plans at every level. And so I want to make sure that you understand that I wish I could tell you that we just go on and get everything ready, but then we know that we'll have to revisit some things. And our hope is that we don't have to revisit all too much, but we understand how that works. So the rest of the schedule then is just sort of me shooting from my hip. What I would like to tell you is that I feel like we can finalize the contract documents, which consist of front-end documentation and specifications and plans. Those things work together and cannot be separated. That's what constitutes contract documents. We'd love to see us advertise in November, award December, and with a notice to proceed in January. I think that schedule could tighten depending on how that first box happens. So if the first box goes from 6 months to 4 months, we gain 2 months all the way. And so I just want to make sure we're flexible. We want to operate as succinctly as we can, but we also know that we're sort of bound by a few things that have to happen with and signatures have to be obtained and so on. All right. So what do we need? Why am I here? Why am I presenting this? What do we need? I think Ann said it best earlier. This is the group that's going to make it happen. I'm looking around the room. I know that you're here because you're interested, you're passionate. You may own a property. You may just be, in support of the project. What we really need is we need this. Is there any reason why you would not advocate for the project? Is there any reason why you would not advocate for this project? You know what the process has been. You know where we are. You know how we got here. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask the second question, which is as you go around and talk to the staff, I'd really like for them to hear what you like best. What is it that you like best about the project itself? And we're going to take 15 minutes for you to look at the board and try to ask questions. I hope that's long enough. If it's not, we'll go further because we want to make sure we cover the subject, but we're going to take 15 minutes. And then what I'd really like to do is maybe have just a little debrief from Jeremy and the staff as to what they heard out of this. Go.
So if I could.
Yes.
Mike Beatty, Great River, Craig, right there, Spencer, and myself. And we're going to put 2 on each side so that we can help you. Is that good?
And Lena, we want to make sure you can get back and forth and see everything. So we'll try to figure that out.
Stop sharing. There we go.
So right-of-way acquisition, is that contract's been let to that? Is that chosen? Okay. And they've started on that?
23rd. We're waiting for this. There's no point in knocking on doors.
Right, yeah.
That was why I think this meeting was imperative. Like, you dropped all these plans on us a month ago, and I was like, oh, yeah, they work, right? And we worked together, and I'm super excited. I'm like, threw the flag on the field and said, stop. We have to get together. And, like, if there's, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. This isn't what we're talking about. Now, because as soon as I loop them in, we're rolling. The next step is that we're taking this plan to open for business, which is through the planning department, because ultimately we put the construction documents, she's at 60%. Like, hey, so this could be an issue, right? We worked through all those issues. So now, here we are, and we worked really hard over the last 2 weeks and like get to this is it, right? And so for the city, like, these crosswalks are very important to me. So $240,000, but we encompassed one more, that's a question. Like, is that okay that we went and grabbed one from the last one, we shoved it into this one, work right?
So what you were saying, the one by the Ferris wheel is moving in?
So the one by the Ferris wheel is the old one's going away and it's shifting down a little bit.
Shifting on west, on
west onto this side, right? So what they originally wanted was they they wanted an island as you're entering this section. And I was like, we will do islands at every block, but that's where we're gonna do it. So that was.
Okay. So how many properties requiring easements?
She has 66 documents that are there, and what I told her was the most important part is when we do these activity centers, we need to make sure it's good.
Yeah.
We need to make sure all these activity centers are like, because this was up on me much, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. But well, way fast, and then you guys are
We had that conversation back how many months ago? That was the concern of that.
right. Like, well, we opted this, so I brought her in December. She's good in the timeline. Here we are in January. And then that's why I asked you for a timeline today. So this is right here, August, that I'm going to construction done. That's fine. So, and like you said, we can speed it up.
Those acquisitions are going to be the critical part of that.
Correct. And so, like, that's, we selected the firm up. They're going to come in here and blaze it. They've been calling, and they're like, let's go.
Okay.
So we're waiting on documents.
Where are they based out of?
So, out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So when they show up, it's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, but they're professionals, so that's okay.
that's all they do.
So that makes sense.
It should be really, really smooth and good. The purpose of this meeting is like, let's release the fire. Like, better say it now.
I mean, the guy that was before the CFS, Bruce, he was really good. I mean, he really, let got screwed up in the process, but he was really good. Great personality. Landowners, we were very happy with what he was working with us. So that, those professionals do make it.
Oh, yeah. That's all they do. Yeah. So we'll align with Ann and here we are on the 31st. Let's go to zoning over. Then we turn right back around and boom, there it goes.
The other one, I know this is but I would guess I'm surprised that the sidewalk is just brush farm.
That's what she had come to is a lot of brush.
Paint or anything?
So that's where she did brush, and then they went to their activity centers and did stamped and 15 different types. So again,
brand new. I get it. Yeah.
Again, right? Like, pops up and even this is Monday. She's brand new too. So this
Hi, welcome. Your name is?
I'm Sienna.
Sienna, I'm Steve.
Steve Preston. So and it's
I actually grew up on Highway 76. I'm one of the few that caught a school bus on Highway 76. So I've seen a lot of Highway 76.
okay. Every morning I wake up to the news and the picture's right on this building. I say, how's our road? Is it nice? Is it good or not? Do we take care of the roses growing?
KY3 loves us, and we love them.
So that's where we're at. And, she's still hustling over, the last 2 days, and there's a little bit of cleanup, like there was still water shown in the entranceway.
My biggest concern, I shared with Dale and Ann last night, is I think there's too many trees. I'm really concerned about the trees. For what 76 is and how it presents. It reminds me of an urban setting. And I don't think that, the rest, down to the ground, all the stuff, I'm fine with that.
And, like the last question is like, she's been convinced the whole time that the road shrinking is the way everybody wants to go. That's the way everybody wants to go.
I have concerns.
I have some opinions. Yeah. But sometimes my voice isn't heard.
Well, I don't know. It's like, how you stop a train, no pun, but I don't know how you stop a train when it seems like nobody questions it.
I've questioned it all on the record. Say my piece, right? So, like, this is my piece as the city naysayer. I want this system all across the park. And if we wanted to go to the lighter, put the lights on it. Yeah, dude, no one controls this right now. And this is proven in Springfield and everywhere else. MoDOT's doing it, you can save 69%, right? This is straight facts. Yeah. And then cost of 75 to 150, what's gonna be? It's gonna be right there, 80, 90, right?
If those, with their design with the Z, if that's offset, is that change? It doesn't change. It's just, it moves, right? There's no additional cost for it. Because I really like the Z that offset that. I think that's great.
So this would just move that stop bar, crossing this way or that way, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, the city is really asking for that. So,
And are they opposed to this, or do you know that? Are they opposed to this, or do you know that it's on deaf ears?
That's why.
Someone we got to figure out how we. I guess my hope is that as we get into this, design is part of it, but the construction. I have real concerns about letting the construction bids go out that we're not at a good design.
Well, it's got to be complete before it goes. There's no way. Yeah. We will not go. That's called change order. That's how construction companies make it.
Oh, exactly.
So this project's are change orders. I mean, what's just a few more, right?
I love it.
So I thought we were doing sticky notes and yelling.
Okay, awesome. Doesn't that address what you're concerned
Yeah, it is. I mean, I just.
If I can get this for this, I can go get it the rest of the way and go do the rest of it. I don't want that phone call.
No, I mean,
I got the phone call.
You just about got one the other night. I watched a little old guy crossing from the Wax Museum, same place. Because the new motel back there, Finley, the guy was crossing in a wheelchair on a camouflage outfit, completely covered up, and it was raining. And I was in clear lane getting ready to turn, and I stopped obviously for that. He didn't even hit the crosswalk, but the guy going by, and the guy never even looked in the wheelchair. It was his fault, but he was in the crosswalk.
I mean, this is what we're doing now, right? We're basically doing this. And she talked about the lighting that was on there, and I'm like, hey, that's like LED lighting on battery backup. It's not enough.
In daytime, it is impossible to see. When it's a west sun coming in depth, you cannot see any of those lights at all.
This would be at a pedestrian crosswalk. This wouldn't be.
I'm talking about you can go.
Well, so what I was going for is the lights that are on there. If we really want to run it forward, why don't we do something for pedestrian? You can't. Gail had brought this up a long time ago. It's like, hey, what do the intersections look like? What I'm saying is, if you want to make it into divider, go to Corchain steel paint and put some lights on it. Make it red. This is what commands the respect.
It is. Yeah. Agree. And you're facing obstacles with it. You're facing obstacles. You got resistance. Have them take that phone call. Yeah, they don't care though.
So it's we were originally talking about 3 crosswalks, but we grabbed the last 4th one. We're talking 240,000, 80,000. So we were talking originally 240,000 on a $32 million project. And I can get on the news and say this is about our pedestrians.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, but then it is
with like this much conviction, right?
Does that fall in any of the transportation grant monies or anything like that?
So that TAP money, if it would have been in there, it could have gone in there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
What I'm hearing is he's hitting the resistance from design wise that they don't want that. I get that. I mean, but designers are always, they're not operators.
No, and that's the problem.
I mean, it's the same thing as today. I heard about a piece of sculpture art sticking out in the middle of the island. I'll tell you right now, the structure that can hit a car. No. So like, dude, they can run over grass all day long in landscape, and I'm okay with it. But nothing solid.
Just put some boulders there. I mean, we don't need a bronze or copper statue.
Yeah, can you imagine it goes over the windshield?
And my big concern is there are so many stinking trees. So I sent it to Galen last night. It's going to destroy them overlooking down 76 with all the trees. And they're going to have to be replaced. Every time you try to plant trees like that, in 10 years, they're going to have to cut down and do. Money. I don't hear anything about it. I know we agreed to do it, but. You want me to pay the others? Yeah. When did that happen? And how easy was that? Really? Yeah. Well, it's still in the account. So, at least she said. No, she said. But she had dollars out of our account to our bank account, so we would pay $6 million. That was what I'm saying. Yeah, but I don't know. We control. We haven't said how much is going to go in that. I believe. We know we haven't. Funny discussion that says, hey, yeah, just take it whenever you want it. Yeah, although we did approve the $6 million to go to the city. Yeah, I get your point. I get your point. Yeah. It's like my wife. Yeah. So much money without the other one knowing about it. You know, same thing. Just a communication thing. Not that we would have said no. I guess I was surprised the $6 million had been paid. I didn't even want to hear about that today. God, I did not want to hear about $6 million. Oh well, I like this. I mean, I'm with you. The trees are my big concern. Get that many in there. Again, it's a design for someone to look pretty on this big board, which it does. It's got a few green dots. It's not going to look as good. You switch those out with one tree and some fairy grasses and rocks. Yeah, I know you're coming all with at ground level. It looks it's not busy. Yep. It's not. I told you. I do have aesthetically just brushed concrete from the sidewalk. Why would we do that? I mean, yeah, but there's other things. Take the shooting ribbons off the gateway. You can do that. Yeah, that's why I asked. So you're directly with Michael?
Yeah, they just brought me in.
Oh, gosh.
And then Cheryl went on vacation, so they're just like, here you go. So I'm right in the woods, literally in the woods. So I love it. I got some chickens and I have another order of chickens coming in.
Okay.
Very excited. I just got my first batch of eggs.
Oh, wow, congratulations. So, where'd you move from?
Colorado. From Boulder County, actually.
Okay.
Been there my whole life. My family's still there.
Okay.
But my husband's from St. Joe, and he went to school in Springfield, and has been having dreams about this place ever since that. And
How are you? Okay, what do you play?
I play piano and sing, and we always talk about Branson, and so he brought me through the Ozarks. We were looking for a new place, and he brought me through here and kind of trapped me through.
Set you up.
Been here almost ever since. Yeah, we started looking for houses that weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. But then we worked for a contractor, and that's kind of what brought me to this sector. Is I was working for a contractor in Branson West, and I loved that. That was the best job I ever had.
Okay. For who? What contractor?
It was like 10 builders. They're not in business anymore. They actually were there. But it was not by any of my figures. But their business was good though. You have to have the capacity to keep up with it because people were waiting 2 and 3 years for even a design and an estimate. So,
Lifetime with Steve Redford, or was it?
No, Matthew Dunn.
Okay.
But there's a lot of similar names like lifestyle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, his lifestyle. Yeah,
yeah, that's it. We got confused all the time.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But I did like the estimating and budgeting, and so that's really kind of my wheelhouse, and that's kind of what I've been doing for public works, kind of keeping everything on budget, make sure that the people
Good for you. So Bradleyville, do you know Leon Combs with his mansion and the elks that are up there?
I did get to see some pretty. I saw a Frank Lloyd Wright
Okay.
And it was very awesome. They just don't think of it like that anymore. And I would love to see that, you know, I like when I get to see some architecture.
Leon Combs is from Bradleyville, and he has a huge mansion up on the hill there.
Oh, is it him or?
I'm not sure if it's got anybody, it's, he raises elk.
Oh, I've seen the elk ranch.
Yeah.
I probably just haven't been far enough back
Yeah,
to see
his
the
house is way up
structure.
there. Yeah,
Wow.
Very, very cool, very successful man in his 80s, but he's just sharp as a stick.
Awesome. I passed that and I just thought it was the coolest thing. 'Cause I, you know, came from Estes area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it has that Colorado.
And they just take over that town. That's crazy. So.
Weird.
Sat down in the door.
I didn't know.
What's up?
Arizona.
Okay, can you all grab your seats, please?
We love that. Okay. Gail, we don't have any sticky notes here, but I understand that there are a few over here, and I'm happy to read through them if you like. Did you collect any?
I did not. Nobody give me anything. We talked about Hawk a little bit.
Okay, so.
Wow. Love it. Yeah, so tell me one of my forehead. Man. Yeah, a little sticky note on my forehead.
It will be the legacy of this.
That's all they're talking about.
I really don't want.
I get it.
Oh, and literally there was a question of, did it activate, did it work, did it not? This is like in your face.
Well, you know, ours is by theater. I don't know if the others do, but the range.
Right, messes with us.
Oh, it's on, anytime it's raining, it's on full.
Right, because,
I don't pay much.
because they're not only touch sensors or proximity sensors.
So, yeah, I think
something
you want to take a few minutes, make a debrief.
It's supposed to protect them, right? And then everything in the roadway.
Okay.
So I'm doing entertainment stories.
So what we're gonna do, I love the energy in this group. You guys are awesome, but what we're gonna do at this point, if my team will stop talking in the back. Did you guys see that? I did the teacher thing. That gets them every time. Anyway, all right, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna step through, and I know that you guys collected some of these thoughts. If I can't answer it, Mike, I might give you a point. And I'm gonna, well, actually start with the one that's on my finger because I'll mess up if I don't. Okay, so at the relaxation zones.
Yeah, so just wanted to make you all aware and kind of manage expectations with that. So I just want to let you guys know that that is going to be a magnet for the homeless. And so you understand from a police perspective, the Supreme Court said that loitering statutes are unconstitutional. So we do not have really an enforcement mechanism. Right now, we currently have an issue with our parks. And the good news for us on that is we have park hours, so we can at least get them for trespassing and things along those lines there. This being an easement along a roadway is, I'm going to assume, is 24/7 public property. So the only enforcement that we would have there is if they're disturbing somebody's peace or actually blocking the use of the sidewalk. So just a consideration for you. I just want to manage expectations that it is not illegal to be homeless, and just because we don't want them sitting there doesn't mean we can't force them to not sit there. So considerations, I don't know if you can play It's a Smart World real loud or something, that music that the tourists wouldn't mind sitting there for 5-10 minutes and stuff. But if you're trying to sleep there, might not make you comfortable. So just that consideration. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea or anything. I love it. It's gorgeous. And then the pedestrian crossings, my only thing with that is you were mentioning the art. I think I brought this up when I talked to you. Pedestrian safety, a big deal for me. And I came from a city where they had put boulders or big rocks in front. So if a car was texting and driving and they went into that crosswalk area where that raised median is, that would stop them. So I would, if you're going to put art there, a nice big pedestal to put the art on or something so that the car hits it, it stops it. Yeah. That would be my only chances of that. So.
Good. Yeah. Liability with the city with art and a driving spot may be an issue. So we'll have to work through that as we go.
It's very common to see those needing replacements.
Okay, awesome, great. So I'm gonna start here. There's a note here that says, take a look at the wall type. Can it look like stone? In fact, that's our intention. I don't know if those of you in the room are familiar with Ready Rock, but Ready Rock has an actual stone face to it. Our intention is we have a retaining, we don't have a lot of retaining wall, but we have a little bit of retaining wall here. And then we have some other places where we're using a bit of what we would call just, like a wall, a landscape wall, but we do intend to use a material that very much looks like stone as much as it can. All right, stepping down. Again, a retaining wall needed. Who would someone like to?
I'll speak to that.
Okay, go.
It was just a question about that retaining wall, the way it was constructed, and we talked about it just really to kind of provide a nice clean edge there, but not necessary, but could be beneficial to.
On the backside of this area. Yeah, nice. Someone put a sticky note here. It doesn't have any words.
Oh, no, that was me drawing and I removed it, so.
It's like magic. It's like magic how this thing's.
I was expanding an area.
We say right here, maintain existing drive. Does someone want to talk through
I
that?
think that they're concerned about in the driveway consolidation, that was probably the main entrance to the business.
Mike, why are we consolidating drives?
Consolidating drives for added traffic safety, traffic control, traffic calming, and pedestrian safety. We're changing the nature of this corridor from a highway to more of an urbanized roadway. And so that when we're done, it should be an increase in pedestrian traffic. And in that corridor, that is the worst sight distance on that particular, in the entire corridor.
On this particular.
Right there. And so we're sensitive to the driveway relocation, but from in terms of the entire corridor, that's the place we've got the worst sight distance. And there's already kind of a cross connection across from Schaefer Drive that we thought could make it workable and line those up, which would be better for traffic control, reduce congestion, and pedestrian safety. But the owner indicated he's really got a concern that that's the major impact to his business. So
That's the main entrance to the Toy Museum. And we're already giving up one driveway, or we were asked to give up a driveway to the Memory Barn, which is part of that complex. But that one we're not willing to give up.
Okay. How about this one? What are the lane widths, Mike?
at the median, we got 21 foot, which allows 10 foot and 11 foot, 10 foot for pedestrian, or not pedestrian, the normal traffic, and then we've got a bypass on the median that allow emergency vehicles to go by, have a different texture so that it'll clearly not be a normal road drive lane, but it's going to be something that emergency vehicles can traverse and still give us that narrowing effect to provide pedestrian safety.
And it will be a texture that is not it will not encourage walking, because the last thing we want are for pedestrians to think that they can walk around that on that emergency access area. So it'll be textured so that it wouldn't be as comfortable to walk on. Who is responsible for maintenance?
I'll speak to that one as well. So the question there was that the improvements that are proposed outside of the right of way, are those the responsibility of the adjoining property owner, or are they a part of the project?
So I think, I'm going to answer a couple of things. So there are a few things that are shown outside of an easement line, and in those instances, a temporary construction easement would be required. In most cases, we're tying back to pavement, we're tying in back to a curb and gutter. We need a little bit of space to do the construction and tie back to existing conditions. And that would continue to be the responsibility of the property owner. But for those things that are shown within the easement line, those are considered, it's considered an easement. The easement is for the utilities, it's for the pedestrian way, it's for the streetscape beautification, and it's for utilities. There are 4 items that easement allows for, including maintenance.
As far as the relaxation, nodes and the entertainment plaza or the train plaza.
Sorry, my watch is calling someone. I'm not sure why. You guys are very exciting and my watch got all into that.
In regards to any of those improvements that extend beyond the right of way that are either in the entertainment plaza, the resting or relaxation nodes or train stations, how does the maintenance responsibilities fall there?
They'll be in an easement and those would be maintained by the city. And if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know.
As long as in our right of way or easement.
So a question on that, to the chief's question there on the warning on that. If that is an easement on a private piece of property, would that property owner have the right to control who's in there? Or is that?
Yeah.
No, the easement is for access.
Access. So I'm saying, will that help solve that problem a little bit? It would not be city property. It would.
Well, no, it would be under the responsibility of the city.
Yeah, so it all, if the relaxation zone is open 24/7 to the public, I can't say you can be there, but you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so is there a way around that is not,
It's a public transport area. So think of in front of your house. If you live on a subdivision that has a sidewalk that's on an easement, but part of your property, right? And you go the other side of it. You can't say, nope, you guys can't go through here during these hours because this is when I'm sleeping or my baby's crying. They have a right to traverse that area. And so as long as, so that makes it, we'll say quasi-public.
Yeah.
So if the porch swings were on private property, even though there's a sidewalk, which is public, can they go and say, look, that's private property, you cannot be on it?
But aren't you putting a porch swing for the public to come to enjoy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then they're public. You can't.
Close
That's what
hours?
the chief is talking about.
Yeah.
Public is public. It's not a, we like these people and we don't like those people.
So I do want to say this though, our greatest hope is that we've created something that is so inspirational in the public space that property owners want to do their own really cool things on the other side. I know that might get sticky, whose property is it? But somebody might put their own porch swing out there, right?
That's my question back on this area is if that was not an easement, if that was an agreement, a joint agreement between the SID board and that property owner or the city from that point is that it's not public area, it's still theirs, but we were to pay to put that on that property. Is that?
I think Mr. Beck has the best example right now because I asked a question about the locomotive. That if that was built into this design, is the city responsible for it? Or is Mr. Beck responsible for painting, maintenance, liability insurance? And I was told that's outside the line. It remains his locomotive, his responsibility.
So that's, and that, so my question is, instead of going for an easement for that property, is there a possibility of doing an agreement with the property owner to do that surface, put that in there, but it is not part of the city's easement?
And he could trust.
So hold on. So there, I have a concern, and Holly, you'll have to speak to this, but Westminster, the city, the mall case, where even though it's private property, it's open to the general public, they got jammed up for exactly that, choosing, well, you can be here, but you can't. And so that is my concern is you can't, if we have, so the thing about private property and like our parks and stuff, if we have a violation, if they break the rules or something like that, that we have something that we can then trespass them for, we're in a much better position than saying, sorry, you can't be here because you're homeless. Yes.
I do think it's going to be a reality. You know, you've been to Vegas and on those crosswalks over the road, the homeless people are on those crosswalks. There's still a ton of people walking in Vegas.
Or bathing in the fountains.
It's just the way it is. So, but if you can figure out how we can minimize that somehow, I think we'd all like to try to figure it out.
I think we might get some more clarification this spring from the Supreme Court. That is our expectation.
Okay, did you have any more, Jared?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so I'll just, I hope we accomplished what you all wanted to accomplish, and I'll just finish it this way. Is there anybody who's got a burning comment that they want to bring up? And I'd love to hear from two people telling us what you like best. Anybody?
I do like that you guys were able to accomplish the pedestrian crossings in such a way that we can get emergency vehicles through. That was a great accomplishment, and that is one of my biggest concerns along that section of highway. It's just people, both walking and driving, are so enamored by everything out, and they're looking around and they're talking and they're not paying attention. So that's one of my biggest fears is pedestrian safety along that. So I like the isolation, how you've done it. Even off the roadway, the walkways, there's a buffer there. So if somebody hops the curb or drifts off, it would still take somebody out walking along the side of the road. So thank you for that.
One more. What do you like best?
I know, I really like how the focus on having not just the utilities in undergroundment, but also how the visual aspect, and particularly keeping the gateway is very, very important, even though that there were the 3 ribbons. Spreading those dollars out throughout the corridor is very important. And by still having that western gateway, it might give us some momentum to do something with the eastern gateway.
Yeah. Sir.
One comment, I'd be remiss if I didn't voice a comment from the Taney County Transportation Advisory Board. And that is that comment earlier that you've excluded transit at this time for any consideration.
For these 2 sections.
Right, at this point in time. And I see all the reasons for that, but thinking beyond that, transportation is always the issue. And in addition to low-cost housing, transportation goes with that. Not only people, but are there access parking areas being planned? Maybe beyond this SID, maybe it's a TIF or something that's going to entertain building parking lots so that people can come in, park their car, walk the 2 sections of the corridor. But then the original contract plan, the Spirit 76 project, had transit included. Of course, that's at a cost. And so my comment would be have the design such that it doesn't have to be completely torn back out and put transit in. If a year down the road or something, we say transit's going to need to come back, because ultimately places grow when they've got good transportation.
Absolutely. So just in keeping with the directive, the 3 lanes, have 3 lanes with a center turn lane, and that center turn lane could be a flex lane, and transit could still be there and still have the occasional median. We still check all those boxes. So if that middle lane were to become a flex lane, it's still quite possible. We didn't do anything to change the center lane. It's
That's
still
a good
there.
stopgap or a backup.
That's
Yes,
my,
absolutely.
that would be what I'm going to say.
But the fixed opening of the roadways and what you put in there, that leads to hindrances later on possibly. I'm just saying, concept-wise, I think we thought of a secondary concept of what transit would be.
You bet.
And you might want to look at that.
Yeah, we, yep.
Okay, I want to make sure then that the board gets to talk. Chuck, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about or add based on the plan?
The only 2 comments that I had was I'm a fan of the broom finish of the gray concrete. We had stamped concrete all the way across it. So it wasn't a big with the design.
The sidewalk. I'm on the same page. So.
And then the only other thing I had was looking through the plan, it looked like there was a number of tall trees that I could getting. Certain businesses, whenever we did segment 3, we made a stipulation with the design team that the trees had to be a certain height to not block the visibility of current construction.
You're cutting in and out, and I'm not sure why. We're getting the gist of it.
Okay, tree height and the broom finish gray concrete.
Okay. Okay.
Chuck, this is Steve. You've got my 2. That was my 2 on the list. So.
Okay.
Sorry, Steve.
Brian?
I agree with them. A lot of trees, brushed, finished, gray concrete was. I get there's a cost versus you know, but that was something I think we have been pretty vocal about from the beginning. But I do like this look a lot. I mean, I think it does. It's not too busy. It's simple. It says Ozarks. There's a lot going very well, in my opinion.
Okay, Billy?
Really agree with what people say, you know, the trees and all that stuff. I like the feeling, but it's just, you know, the natural setting. That's what we're trying to do. Ozark, I mean, you think about the number one voted in terms of, you know, where do we go here to here? I think they've nailed a lot of what they need to do. It is interesting when you start thinking about, you know, the train, all that stuff, because, you know, that's not really the city. Because, you know, if you think about theme park, there's an operating procedure, has safety, and all that stuff. So who's monitoring all that stuff? You know, if you do this, if you do that, you get hurt in one of those things, you know, especially if it's, you know, if it's home, but it's not in the Eastman, but it's in, you know, a good example is that train. You know, if it gets in there and it gets hurt and all that stuff, is that goes to Tom? Is that the city? And you know, if you do anything, you say you put the berm up, and you put retaining wall, and then you got to have railing and all that stuff. But it's interesting. It just, I think you there you accomplish what we're trying to do. You know, I know even the only thing I know that we still don't have the agreement with all the stakeholders, and I know that the Dunn doesn't like removing. There's no way they can work with that one access next to the, you know. So I know that you guys going to work around that and all that stuff. So, but I think that's so overall it is the tree could be a block, you know, a view blocker if it's size and all that stuff. That's
anything else? Okay. So the only one I gave to them, well, first of all, I think this is.
By the way, one more thing.
Okay.
I think the executions can be interesting because you can do all this design. It's gonna look good in the picture. What's it look like in real thing? Because from the gate all the way to all that stuff, my first thought is just, you know, in everything we do and I do, there's an art director, someone who actually see things in a different perspective. And I think that's the other thing. It's just, it looks good, but does it look like that when it gets done? So that's what I have.
Okay, Steve?
So the main issues for me are overall design, I think is Ozarks and feels good from that point through there. The sidewalk, as Chuck was saying, and that was on my list. Somehow I think we need to figure out budget wise that it is not just brush concrete, gray concrete down through there. I think from our guest experience, it will not have the appeal that it should have from there. I think from the community's experience and looking at it, there will be a real concern of all you guys did was put a 5 or 6 foot wide brush concrete sidewalk down through there. And I don't think that meets the level of what we should have in this community for the sidewalks going down through there. The trees are a major concern in the number of them and the height. Part of the visibility of Highway 76, you were talking earlier about the camera that's in front of our theater and looking down through there. There is a view looking down Highway 76, just as there is a view in Vegas. Vegas view is much greater than ours, but there is a view looking down Highway 76. And we've got lots of trees in the Ozarks. I just don't know that we need those to block those views down through there. I understand we need, from the guest experience, have some areas for them to get some shade and figure out. So I would really question the amount of trees that are down through there. The last one is really on the crosswalks again, to make sure that we have adequate lighting. I just about saw another person get hit last week going across in front of Hollywood Wax Museum. It is a very scary experience to live on Highway 76 and see what happens out there. So we need to make sure that it works. The aesthetics are great, but we need to make sure it works. And I think the Z design is very good in doing that, but I think it's going to require additional, some type of markings to catch people's attentions from there. Doing on it. And, but overall, I think we're on a good path with it. So.
Billy?
I know this is discussed about public restroom. It's not even on the plan anywhere, right?
No.
And also, I know we want people to get off the car to walk, and we don't have parking. So are they okay parking? I know, like working with Nolan Fogel, with the Dunn, you know, he's complaining, you know, especially in the Piscatty and but beyond the lands that, you know, this guy are taking my space and all that stuff. But we are gonna park our car somewhere, and then we're gonna walk. So it's gotta be either Dunn Theater or it's gonna be Piscatty, somewhere like that. So how is that gonna be? How do you address that? I mean, is that being addressed?
I mean, I think, you know, we talked about that. We talked about it at all of our meetings. We talked about shared parking. We talked about shared drives. We talked about how do you encourage people to park here and walk beyond. You know, I think
Is that the agreement that you guys are working with in terms of the stakeholder, that they say, okay, you know, that we are gonna use your parking as part of the.
It's
private property.
Yeah,
No.
so how does that?
I mean, if I may, I think you all are exactly the right group to talk to your, you know, your members and your stakeholders and say, we're creating something that's a huge investment that brings economic potential, development potential to the corridor, but we may need to think about things a little differently. How can we encourage people to park? Are you able to come up with people that say, I don't mind if folks want to park, and then there's a sign that says, you know, park and walk. I mean, is there a campaign that you as an ESID can embark upon? I mean, I've got lots of ideas in my head, Billy. It's just beyond the scope of what we're able to do in the corridor when we're staying within the right of way.
That really changes the insurance side of it for the business, though, to open that up, that is not a customer of yours to do that.
Yeah.
It seems to me, as long as the city is requiring each business to have adequate parking for their business, that's going to work its way out a little bit anyway. Public parking would be great. Right now, we just don't have the access.
If I was walking and I need to go to the restroom,
you know,
and say I want to go to your that's close, and I gotta go real bad, and the closest one is Presley Theater. You know, I think my question is, how do you do?
Well, and they use our parking lot, you know, Chuck knows this, they use our parking lot a lot for Hollywood Wax Museum and things around there. We don't have daytime shows, so it's easier for people to do that. Most of the theaters do have daytime shows, so that's a factor from there. But again, I think as long as the city's requiring adequate parking for that business, the business is going to have to deal with that, and people will figure out they're still going to park, walk a little ways, but they're going to move the car. They're not going to walk.
They're not going to walk.
They're not going to walk along.
When the whole corridor is done, I mean, they won't.
Yeah, you have to put on the engineering hat too, and you come to the revelation that the car can only be in one place.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about the Best Western Center Point Inn, Heroes, and Clay Cooper. So you go to Heroes and you're staying at the Best Western, but you can't be both places. Okay, you're either in the restaurant or you're in the hotel. And then you park there, and then you walk across the street to Clay Cooper's theater. Well, that means that he's got more parking because they're in my place. And so we actually have a cross parking easement between Heroes and the Best Western Center Point Inn, and I've never run out of parking because your car can only be one way. And there are thousands of parking places along that road. And so, I mean, I think if somebody did a transportation study and wanted to pull that in, it might make sense to pull that in as a facet of it. But I'd have to think really hard when I've last seen a business on 76 that completely ran out of parking.
I can tell you Clay Cooper does all the time. They park in the neighborhood behind back there.
Yeah, okay.
So they line the streets back through there.
Yeah,
But it works, right? It works.
Yeah, I guess.
You're right about that, but we're trying to encourage people to park somewhere and walk.
We want that.
Yeah, that's what we want. So the question, the number of parking, like the Ozark, for instance, there's a bunch of fun things to do there. I'll be parking out there just to play there, and I might walk here, I might walk there, but I'll be parking my car there.
So I got caught into that trap. That's probably outside the scope of the discussion today. I really like the texture. I really like the fact that it's more interesting. My only two comments would be, let's not forget about lighting and what it's going to look like at night.
Sure.
Because a lot of people are going to be in that corridor at night. And then I asked them, which might be the insurmountable task, but we have this really large activity area in front of the lodge and the Hughes Brothers Theater. And we also have some more space. And I asked them is it possible to give us, maybe cut this one down, amplify this one, and give us two spaces as opposed to one, because that's a long throw. And I understand that the underground has to satisfy the above ground, and that may be the insurmountable task. But it is what it is. Okay.
There was a discussion about lights, sound, and banners. Is that all in place also?
Sound is something that the street lights that we're looking at have the ability to do all the things that you want, if you want them to. It's a matter of cost.
So is that in their budget now or?
What we have, it is actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is, along with the sensors that I described
Right.
before, a number of things. I mean, technology is a wonderful thing. Is that the only place that you want sound, or if that's where you want sound, I don't know, but that's the most consistent piece of infrastructure that I can provide throughout the corridor that would make the greatest impact. So that's what we priced out.
Okay, good.
Okay, so if we can, we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna change the agenda around just a little bit. And so city, if anybody here decides they wanna go, that's fine. You're all welcome to stay. Or contractors. So what we're gonna do is, the next thing is we're gonna let Alex give us kind of his quick and dirty about the city's vision for incentives, maybe as it relates to 76. And then after that, we're gonna have Mark talk a little bit about some of the things that he's concerned about. Development on 76, and then Ann is going to talk to us about something she's working on with funding at the state level. So Alex, you're up.
Bet. Well, thank you. It's an exciting day, right? To be in Branson and to be in Branson city government and to be part of this community. And we really want to build on and accelerate that. And as we've, come on board here as an administration this past year and a half, we've got a lot of partners out that are trying to build new development here as well as existing businesses. And that's a great strategy, right? But has this Board of Aldermen and administration and mayor sat down and thought, with the community, of course, and thought about what does the future look like? What is our short-term plan? What is our middle-term plan? What's our long-term plan? And we have a lot of policies on the books, right? We have our economic development manual back in 2017. We have the community plan 2030 to guide a lot of those conversations. But as we're considering one-off, transactional types of incentive projects, especially with the Skillcrest project that went through, I think we learned a lot of valuable lessons with that. One, I think we've got a better understanding of where this current board is at on how to use public incentives for public good. Should you use incentives for public good? And more importantly, that kind of backed us up into the idea of, well, why don't we sit down and develop a series of meetings to identify a lot of those priorities, get input from existing businesses, get input from those who have, as I mentioned in my remarks on Monday, right? Blood, sweat, and tears have built this community into what it is. They're a huge part of that conversation. So what we did was put a number of meetings together for our Board of Aldermen to really kind of spark this idea of how can we encourage new development, but how can we also encourage existing development? We had our first meeting on Monday. That was really a public comment and input session to our Board of Aldermen. That was the opportunity for the public and other business leaders in our community who've invested here for many, many years an opportunity to talk to our board about what should those priorities look like? What should the scope of a new economic development policy or manual, what should that look like? What are the thresholds? What are the sideboards? And again, how do we match the community's values, family, faith, flag, tourism, right? How do we match that with and couple that with where we want to go in the future? So our first meeting was really successful. We had, I would say, almost close to a packed house in our city council chambers, where we were able to sit down and hear directly from business owners and hear from those who have invested and may invest in our community in the future to really help guide that policy process. So the next meeting we had, which was yesterday, was really a training for a Board of Aldermen on, state statute and city code and city policy. What's currently on the books? What tools can we utilize as a city to spur that regional development? And we have, like I said, great partners like Jonas, right? Who bring new development in, but great when administration talks to a new business developer, whether they go through Open for Business or whether someone's looking to expand. There's no real sideboards, I think, that administration has right now. So how can we possibly go out and encourage existing businesses to develop or even begin to understand any type of larger development to come in if we don't have those sideboards put up? So that's really what this process is designed to do. At the end, in a month from now, we're going to have the opportunity to revamp our economic policy manual update. And that should shape the future. And like I said, really springboard us into making Branson truly open for business. So, as I encouraged Gail, I wanted you to make sure on behalf of the CNE board and of course the members, and thank you for distributing to the whole 76 business community. I know a member of them spoke. And that was the right place to do that, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, our Board of Aldermen are the policymakers here. Administration with our consultants are helping guide that, but ultimately it's the Board of Aldermen, right, who, of course, need to listen to the constituents and the business community to guide administration to a solid plan and pathway forward. So that's where we currently are. I think last night's discussions really were engaging and I think really built upon the first meeting. And I could see the excitement in our board as well as a lot of the community members who had provided comment on what they thought some of their priorities were and where we could head. I think one of the biggest ones, of course, that was mentioned was housing. I think that's, and I've talked to many board members about this and, we haven't received formal guidance yet, right? We're still in that development process, but housing's a huge part of this. I think it's a component of it, right? But housing also doesn't generate sales tax. It also doesn't generate tourism tax. And that's something we, of course, want to capitalize on as well. So as I said, this is really, we had this process with Philcrest. Our board, I think, got the feet underneath them of understanding how incentives work and the role of city government, the role of Board of Aldermen, the Board of Administration, the role of how that all works. But I know there's a lot of open-ended questions that conversation gave. Should we be utilizing certain incentives? What's fair? Is it an equal playing field for current folks that have invested for many, many decades in our community? And I looked at 76 in that perspective, right? I mean, you saw the picture of old Main Street Branson in 1912, as a single lane, small town to all of a sudden, I don't think you could have ever guessed that we would boom as we did in the 90s. So what's our next chapter? How do we take the baton here in city administration and as a board and look again to another 112 years down the road to where we could be? And I think that's just a really exciting opportunity. I don't know that type of thinking, right, has maybe necessarily happened here at City Hall. So Kathy and I are happy to champion that and really make sure we're moving that forward. And I can't express enough how excited we are to be able to partner, of course, with the 76 business community, as well as other business communities throughout our town in different sectors. So that's kind of where we are. It's where we're looking to go. I think the opportunity to talk with Kathy and I, whether you have individual businesses that you hear about or ideas that you hear about, we are more than willing to sit down and listen to those ideas. Now is the time, I will tell you. And as I mentioned, the Board of Aldermen meeting on Monday and Tuesday were really also those key opportunities to get ahead of that. But now that we find ourselves here today with Wednesday with this conversation particularly, I'd love to hear some thoughts and ideas, but ultimately that will help shape, I think, a better policy for our entire city.
Thank you. What questions do you have for Alex?
I listened, I wasn't there Monday night, I listened in, it sounded very educational. I think you guys are on a good path from that point through there. I do think those guardrails and choosing who and how that's put in place. I would caution in a way sales tax for extended periods of time. For me, that's a real concern. That first one seemed like it was a very long period of time that for that business. And I understand, going back to Joe's but for, I think that is really, if that business doesn't succeed without that, I would really look at the business plan and what it is. But I do understand that we need to encourage people to develop. But Branson has developed all through the years without having that in place. It's been a little more stagnant, but I don't know that's as much as a Branson issue as it's been an economy issue since 2008. We've seen some bursts back now, which is great. But, there was a long period of 15 years that the economy was not doing well across the United States and development wasn't. So I applaud the idea of putting some guardrails in place and really having some guidelines and stipulations of what qualifies and what doesn't. As for existing businesses to tap into that, I think it's a little challenging, but, open to hear what you guys come up with.
You bet. And, I want to reinforce enough, right? I know that there's been a lot of concern, right, about prioritizing new development over existing type of development. And that's something we're very conscious about. I think Philcrest was a good eye-opening opportunity. I think that deal was a little bit unique in the sense of it's, solely developer at risk per se, right? And I know that also there's other businesses that felt that they were negatively impacted by that deal. And, we've reached out and are working with them on a separate track. But I just hope you all hear that, not only is the city committed to the 76 project here, right? The hundreds and I would say thousands of hours, right, we spend and Michael and his team spend on this project through the SID, which is an incentive. We're also, of course, committed to seeing what else we can do to boost 76. But that being said, that should be wrapped into our larger economic development plan that we create as a city.
One thing I would look at, just to add to that, and I think it was brought up in a meeting the other night, and it always has been a concern for everybody. The entryway to Branson is not in our SID district. It's a ways from it. I think it's a ways from getting. I would encourage the city to look to see what opportunities there in encouraging development, changing that look through there. At some point, maybe the SID could, our board would come into that and be involved with it. But we're going to have this really nice section. We're starting on the back end of it, moving back east on through there. But that entryway for that first 5-6 blocks, 7, whatever, all the way to Fall Creek Road is an eyesore. And, I wish it wasn't, but if there was a way for the city to get in front of that a little bit more, even separate from the SID board.
And actually, I had planning department and their GS folks kind of develop some maps here of, what I call it a segment 7, right? I don't think we have to necessarily call it that, but, what type of opportunities might exist there for the city to get engaged in. And that's something I think that the mayor and just the board members that I was able to connect with after the meeting last night are very, very supportive and interested in. So I'm looking forward to, of course, finding a way to try to see if we can wrap that into this type of policy update too. It'd be a great opportunity to amplify, right?
Yeah, you've got downtown, you've got from 65 on down, that area has that downtown homey feeling from that point through there. But, from 65 west, there are some challenges. The Veterans Garden is a nice look there, but.
And, we really want to keep, right? I mean, Branson is what makes Branson. Right, we want to keep that heritage. I would say, as an outsider, it's more apparent to me than anything. Right, coming here only 2 years ago, that to understand and to be able to put your finger on that. Right, that's what our selling is. That's what you don't get in the Pigeon Forge. It's what you don't get in the Las Vegas. Right, so we want to keep that type of image and heritage and tradition here through all these discussions. And I think obviously 76 knows that better than anyone.
Yeah, and I think this does reflect that. So I'm pleased with that.
Any other questions for Alex? Chuck, have you got anything that you'd like to convey to Alex or any questions?
No, I don't.
Good. So I'll talk about the history of that area for just a minute, because I don't know if you were on the board at the time. But before I do that, just a segue. So, we've heard over and over, Good Lord has a tendency to have these things come up at the same time. We've heard over and over that it would be a shame if we spent all this money in 76 and we put great things in front of ugly buildings. And we want the people who are that have businesses on 76 to get involved in amplifying the millions of dollars that the city and the CID are going to spend on 76. So I thought the fact that the city did basically an educational session on what's available was fantastic. I think Joe did a great job of laying it out. In fact, he got so passionate that sometimes his 90 minutes ended up being 2.5 hours. Okay, and yeah, wow. And they were kind enough to let me get up.
Not saying a word.
Yeah, they were kind enough for me to get up a little bit. And one of the things I told them related to sales tax is please protect the 25% tourism tax. Do not use that as an incentive. I mean, that's the holy grail for us. So I put this, and so what I wanted to do was start that dialogue, see if we couldn't get the city somewhat focused with incentives on 76, because it is the project. And I did not make enough copies of this, but thanks. I'll try to get, and Chuck, you don't have a copy of this, but I will send you one after this meeting. Make sure that everybody gets a
As
copy.
many copies as you want, I can run to the copier for you.
Well, let's see how we do here. I have 2 more. Who wants? So this is just a starter discussion, and I don't really think that it's time for us to have much discussion about this today. But and he talked about how we could focus on existing businesses. And as I told Holly last night, I said I don't know if there's a legal way to do some of this, but I want to start a discussion because I want us to begin the dialogue. How do we focus? So we do know. So I'll read it, Chuck, so that you can hear it, and as well as the others online. So we do know that the city needs the property owners to sign easement agreements in order to implement the project to the fullest. Well, it's common to purchase easements. I don't know that we've ever done that, but for those businesses that sign agreements, they could receive X dollars out of some fund for a period of X years. The city has the opportunity to encourage businesses along the 76 corridor to provide the lighters and improvement on their 76 frontage. So could those businesses qualify for I put 40% in here, but that could be whatever the discussion ends up being, of their approved investment up to X dollars out of some fund for a period of X years. Then the businesses would need to satisfy criteria that supports the project, maybe supports the core values that you laid out, State Family Fund, Friends, Flag, and Foliage. They need to prove expenditures. They'd have to maintain the improvement. And then some businesses needs to be improved on 76. So the business could apply for something to be funded by some fund. And frankly, Joe laid out some of the possibilities of what could happen here. So what I'd ask you to do is go be thoughtful about what else. Now, I didn't put in here some of the businesses. We have some vacant land. We have some businesses that are under demolished on here because I think that's way more complicated. But here's 2 or 3 things that maybe we could make an impact on. And how many, I was thinking about, so number 2, so the city has the opportunity to encourage businesses along the 76 corridor to provide the lighters and improvement on their 76 frontage. And one of the things that I can't get my arms around is we want to spend quite a bit of money in different areas of this thing. And yet the Duttons have got this great fountain they've proposed, and we're basically asking them to pay for all of it. And so how could we encourage it that really happens, or happens in, I would be overjoyed if along the 76 corridor, 30 businesses did something significant in their business that delighted the customers. Okay. So, and I'm happy to hear you guys' comments. I have no artist license in this. Okay, this is just the thoughts starter. But what could we do that would make it easier? And I guess number one, the reason I put number one is in here is because Ann and I and some of you all and some of the city staff, we really took a chunk out of our backside getting all of these signatures to get the petition signed to create this CID, because we continue to hear stories about the city. And, you know, I wondered if maybe if we turned that around and said, here's what we're willing to do for you. And we need a little bit of ground, if that would make a difference. I don't know. So I appreciate you guys. So if somebody's got a burning comment, please.
I think just thinking, it's going to be interesting, and Michael and I were talking a while ago, as far as the firm that's been hired to go out and get these easements. It's going to be really interesting to see what response they get. I think that may give us a little clearer view of what's needed, or if anything is needed in that process of that. So, and that's getting ready to start.
26th of February, 23.
So how was the response to segment 3?
They never got on.
It was a real mix. There were players that were understood and wanted to do it, and there were ones that not. You know, Chuck and Wax Museum, they stepped up. They did their part there. We hopefully at Presley's we've done our part.
Titanic did their part.
Titanic, but there were ones that didn't, and so it's going to be interesting to see if that after they see what segment 3 is there, if the new other property owners, what their reaction is.
The goal is complete streets on this as soon as you're happy with segment 1 and 2 and the design and that, to write it, and then this is what goes on 76.
And I don't know if this might have a time, but I would really like to hear from your concerns of the crosswalks and things.
Sure.
I don't know, you're leading this, but he has some concerns and that, and some challenges. And I think as a board, if we don't hear those, I have some real concerns that we're not driving this, we're being pulled along. And if the city has if some city staff has concerns and those are not being heard, it kind of seems like we're heading down a path that's something not as bad as what happened before, but could happen as what happened before.
Yeah, especially if there's safety concerns. Yeah. And you know what, and so I don't mind telling you, what I've told Michael is that he can get all the input in the world from all of us, but when we all walk away, he's in charge.
But I don't know that he's feeling that with the design side of it, so.
Okay.
I can't speak for him, so,
Well,
but I hope he would speak openly.
Yeah, they work for us, and so if there's an issue there, I think we all want to hear it. But I want to make sure, anything else related to this document?
Can I pop in after board orders first?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other board member? Sorry, I don't want to cut.
Billy, you got anything? Chuck, you got anything else you want to talk about?
On this thing here?
Yeah.
I sent it to Chuck, by the way.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes, I just.
All right. Yeah, Brian?
No.
Okay.
As a city, right, when we are considering utilizing tax dollars, there's a number of tests we have to pass, the what for test, sometimes feasibility studies, right? And those are on larger developments, right, that we utilize the traditional tools, TDD, TIF, et cetera, right?
Right.
This is kind of SID-esque, right, of investing dollars back into a business. I can't speak for the board on the threshold, right, of what type of dollar amount or what type of initial investment they're looking to do, especially when it's so on 76 businesses. But I will tell you, this already kind of sounds a little bit like what a SID's purpose is, right? To that point, though, I will say we just have to be very careful in how we approach and follow the normal customary processes of when someone asks for a tax dollar, right? Whether it's an abated dollar, whether it's a dollar invested into upfront from the city or it's land acquisition and whatnot. Those are all discussions that ultimately, right, the city has to be responsible for. So we take a lot of care in that because should a project fail, that's essentially tax dollars that are being used versus, let's say, something that came out of a different incentive, whether it be a SID or whatnot. So I would just say, I think this idea is great on its face. I think this is something I want to ask the mayor about. It's something I want the board to see. We could definitely work this into some type of conversation piece for as we consider our larger plan. But I do want to tell you, as we approach economic development, and even in the past where it's very transactional, based on kind of case by case basis, the only thing I get concerned about here is just if we give away money, ultimately those are taxpayer dollars, whether generated through tourism tax or sales tax, we're still responsible for that. And it's somewhat difficult to prove. How does this help with the public good, right? It's easy when we put in extra dollars through incentives and we get a 4-lane road built, right? That's an easy public good threshold to get over. So I think this is a great idea. We definitely want to bring this back and chew on it. But just know, like, first and foremost, we are always concerned about anytime we're providing any incentives. And you mentioned that on the dais especially, right? If we're giving away tourism tax, we have to be very cognizant of that. So we very much want to just have that at the forefront of our minds as we are considering any incentive. This is such a hot topic.
This is an idea, it's just from him though. He's not proposing, because it's just.
No, this is a thought starter.
Yeah, it's a thought starter, so.
And you know what, here's what I would tell you, Alex. I would approach it as though I'm gonna do something. What is it I'm gonna do? Okay. I love number 2. Okay, because that just amplifies what we're doing. And if you approach it that way, I think that something will happen. I also believe that if you begin to have the discussion, it's amazing how when you discuss these kind of things, people start to think about doing things, right? And so you might have this discussion, we might not get any incentives done, and people might start building fun things in front of their business. So, okay, so I'm gonna leave that. I just appreciate you guys thinking about it.
And I think, they need to improve expenditures, right? Maintain the improvement, all those things that developing criteria, that all makes total sense. So let me run this by the mayor and the board, and this is a great starter. And hopefully, maybe we can follow up at the next meeting.
That'd be fun.
I'd just add, this is, if done right and done through the vision, is the biggest economic development project that, we all will likely ever see, not just tied to one place. So I think there is some legs to the document, worth considering, worth discussing for sure.
Okay, Mark, I'm gonna let you give us a sense of what you're. Oh, do we have a presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
Just
cool.
to keep yours moving quickly.
Okay.
Is this sharing online?
We would need to get, Paul, do you want to see this online? We're going to need to share our screen or send it to them.
Okay. Michael, I'll make you the host. Is that good?
Yep.
Oh, I think you already are the host.
There you go.
All right.
Do you see a presentation, Paul? PowerPoint?
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the time to address the board. And I wanted to just say how happy I am that this is an opportunity to dovetail so nicely into so many things that are happening in the city. And I'm really happy to be able to follow Alex. I know that shuffling the agenda actually worked out for my benefit, because I got to hear the words he said. This is truly an exciting time to be in Branson. So I wanted to build off the momentum, not only from the 2 meetings we had earlier this week, but also, obviously, this is a fantastic project for the city, and really excited to see this thing move forward, not only just for segments 1 and 2, but the totality of the corridor, and maybe hypothetically even a 7th segment or another SID at some point in the future. But with that said, one thing I think is really important is to stay grounded as it refers to where we're at with our visioning. And one thing that was repeatedly highlighted by Joe when he made the presentation to the board yesterday was we need to be able to set our goals and our parameters, our guideposts per se is what we want to do. And I'd venture to say we already have that. We have our 2030 community plan that talks about a lot of things, but doing a quick word search, if you look at that particular plan, the 76 Country Boulevard is mentioned over 150 times in that particular document. And even in the vision, it talks about how that is important to the visual character of the community, and how the streetscape project in particular was a specialized project that was highlighted as something that was needed for integrity of the character and future of the city. But not only that, it's talking about how even with your desired future, of how this is the true activity center, and how this is something that needs to be preserved. So, at the city, we continue to look at it at a staff level, how to make that happen. It is our duty to make the plan a reality. But with that said, no plan that is on paper is good. It needs to be a living document per se, in the sense that we need to be continue cognizant of the things that are happening throughout the city. So one thing we're always doing is looking at what are the growing trends, where are we at with implementing the plan, and how are we staying within the rails and the guidelines of the existing vision that's on the table per se. I do want to say that it is very important to the city not only to develop economic development parameters, but just a vision for the entirety of the community, and not just the ECID corridor, but all of the city boundaries. So with that said, one thing that we always want to take a look at, and this is something that I shared with you when we had an opportunity to present on this on July the 26th, was looking at the existing segments. So as you can see the different colors, you can see each individual segment. Obviously with this particular corridor, we're focusing on segments 1 and 2, the red and the orange areas. When we did an initial analysis, we wanted to look at where are the vacant properties? Where are the opportunities for additional development that wouldn't necessarily be infill or redevelopment? But certainly knowing that infill and redevelopment are very important factors within the integrity of the corridor. But with that said, it's very important to start looking at what are the greenfield type opportunities for development? What do we even allow within the district? So anytime we start looking at that in a deeper dive analysis, we want to vet that data. So Amanda and her team had done a great job at field viewing the site and looking at all the different vacant properties to verify what are the actual vacant parcels along the particular corridor. So you can see those in this map with yellow, but then obviously then you want to take a additional lens and overlay, for example, the zoning layer. So if you go onto the city's webpage, it's gis.bransonmode.gov/zoning map, you can see an interactive live map of our zoning map at any given time. And with that said, we're actually going to be unveiling a pretty cool tool that helps think through what our available land uses in the future. So we're very excited about what our GIS folks are doing in the city. But it's important to point out that we do, even in this meeting, we had quite a number of city staff here supporting this particular project. We do want to continue to support the integrity and the future of the corridor and the economy being viable. So you take essentially the zoning map and overlay it against, for example, the yellow parcels are still highlighted here. So if you look at yellow, you can see, okay, well, what zoning district are those in? So where you see purple highlighted parcels, you'll see those are all within the entertainment zoning district, and then red would be community and commercial, et cetera. So, so since the majority of the corridor is within the entertainment zoning district, you want to make sure that this is the truly cognizant of what we want to see for the future, not just today, but 10, 15, 20 years from now. So just took a snapshot of what are the available land uses within that particular district. And one thing that we're seeing in overlaying with regards to what our inquiries are with development opportunities, one thing I do want to say is one thing that came up at the meetings. Michael, do you mind hitting back on? I went too far, sorry. Thank you. So one thing that came up was how affordable or workforce related housing is very important to the city. In particular to our ticket generating businesses, because if you don't have the workforce to work in these facilities, are the people that are coming and visiting this great city, are they going to have a really enjoyable time? So if you have the workforce, then these businesses, not only that are here, can continue to be successful, but we can then encourage additional development within the city. So one thing that you can see that pops out of this list of the allowable or permitted uses within this district are a couple things I put a little bit in gray, which I guess didn't show up too well. But one thing you'll notice is that what I would call a R1, or actually you can see like number 25, number 26, multifamily residences, nightly rentals. You can see timeshare units, number 20 over here, hotel and motels. Those are all things that are allowed within this district that potentially can speak to that supporting industry. It was said at one point, do we only want to allow ticket generating businesses within this corridor? So when you see things like, not to pick on any particular business, but we obviously just saw the development of Chick-fil-A. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that particular business, but because that's supportive of some of the things that people are wanting to do, that's not necessarily generating ticket revenue. However, when you're talking about other things, you want to see really hone in what is the vision, how are we preserving the integrity of the corridor. So zoning is the best tool we have to take a look at the future going forward. And one thing that we continue to get inquiries on, for example, is how we potentially can make more workforce of affordable housing. So we get numerous inquiries with regards to how you convert a hotel or motel into an apartment complex. We've already seen several within the city, and I venture to say we're going to see more. But because it's such a growing trend, other things come into play. And then with this particular corridor, obviously with the pedestrian safety being one of the major components to this, if you're putting more and more apartment complexes, for example, within this corridor, how does that affect the school and school buses and garbage trucks and things like that you might not traditionally have on the corridor already, which is already what you might classify as congested. So those are all things that we want to take a look at. For every action, there is a reaction. So trying to get ahead of that, Amanda, again, and the planning team and other city staff, we're taking a look at how we can analyze how these things are going to affect going forward. That you're not just having, an open faucet, that you get to one point where you have maybe way too many units or you having way too much congestion within the corridor. So how do we put safe boundaries on that? And so it's very important that we take a deep dive into that, do these kinds of analysis. So with this particular example, you see, it's kind of hard to see, and I apologize, but if you see these little yellow dots, these are all the lodging establishments within the corridor. So again, if you want people to stay and have fun and be here for more than a day or two, you want them to stay overnight. However, obviously we have other areas developed within the city, and this isn't necessarily to pick on any existing business that we have, but truly what is the appropriate amount or level that we have going into the future? What do we want to see? I don't think there's anybody that's going to say we want less ticket generating businesses within the city. I would venture people are going to say we want more, but what is an appropriate balance with regards to things like hotels, motels, apartments, those types of things? So those are all things we want to take a look at and dig into it in a deeper way. So, going forward, we're going to dig into one particular issue, for example, and what does a hotel motel conversion look like? And how does that impact entertainment zoning district? And do we want to hone in what those requirements are? So, for example, we're going to be taking a study session on February the 13th to look at this particular issue. And we could potentially have as early, not saying this is set in stone, but as early as March the 5th, we could potentially take any code amendments that we might want to take a look at the Planning and Zoning Commission on March the 5th, which then could go to the Board of Aldermen as early as March the 26th. Again, not set in stone, but it's important then, if this is an important topic to you and how that plays in with regards to the future of the corridor, not just economic development incentives, but truly what are going to be built, what are we going to allow to be built in this corridor, size, scope, and scale. So there are going to be continued opportunities for outreach and input, and that is the lifeblood of making important and informed decisions. So we can have discussions at Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, or Alderman meetings, community outreach meetings. So there's going to be many opportunities, but kicking it off, we're going to start this discussion on February 13th. So my intent today isn't necessarily to dig into what do we want potentially for the corridor, but if you go back, for example, and look at the table of uses, does that really fit what we want for this particular corridor? Knowing this is truly, one of the most important corridors, if not the most important corridor within the city. So, so I do encourage you, if you would like to, come to the February 13th meeting and maybe even March 5th or March 26th meeting. It is important for you all to know that the city continues to invest analysis and time in making sure that it fits within the flavor of the future of the city. So we're going to keep that momentum going.
And to dovetail, Mark, our lodging safety initiative has been prioritizing some of the establishments, right, that we find along 76 that are not up to code, have significant life safety violations, and I think that's a benefit to the 76 Corps to address those, right? However, when they are vacant, it's also an eyesore, blight, right? Some of those owners that own those places have reached out to the city, as Mark said, and are trying to, per se, circumvent lodging safety codes and want to take those and make those apartments. I think you all will agree, and I'd love to hear your input, as Mark said, of I think anything along the forefront, front space, right, at 76, you're going to want to keep that ticket generating, sales tax generating, tourism tax generating. However, is there a benefit? And some of these hotels manage to stay there. And Fire Station 1 across, there's a few in that whole strip that are vacant. And that's not the gateway that we're trying to portray, right? Given all the huge amounts of investment later on in the corridor. So, how do you incentivize someone to tear a building like that down and or convert it into a useful use that would benefit the city? So we talk a lot about housing. We're working on some other things outside of just this conversation, to incentivize the development of that, not just low income, but also truly workforce and affordable housing. And I think maybe this need of taking some of these older hotel motels that need significant investment, given their proximity to businesses along 76, can you make those into studio apartments that provide walking distance to Price Cutter, where they work along the strip, and they become studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, whatever type of apartment, right, that are affordable. So, because as the way they stand right now, they're related to old buildings that don't meet code and really have, I don't think, any chance of coming back in a sense. So how do we help change the dynamic of, and that's the question, and that's really where the rubber hits the road for you all, is we'd love to hear your feedback on, is there a priority of sales generating, ticket generating, right, tourism tax generating businesses, or is there some possible uses for some of these properties where the city can get behind and possibly make them into workforce housing or affordable housing opportunities?
What questions do you have for Mark or Alex?
One question from the previous meeting I asked as far as the entertainment district there as for churches, and I think you looked up and said churches were not allowed in that, I believe was the answer.
No, they are.
They are? Okay. Okay, I misunderstood that. Okay. Gotcha. Just to Alex's question there, for me, I think there is the opportunity to have some mixed use in that area through there. If we're going to have the feeling of a real community, if it is a viable structure that works for people to live in, it does need to be code and do it from that. There is appeal for people to live in urban areas in the cities of doing that. I think 76 has that opportunity too. There is a lot of land still to develop that is not those motels doing that need to be developed. So I guess for me, it's not as much concern, but they do need to be aesthetically appealing and up to code. And hopefully that would allow the amount of money it costs to stay in there to be a viable something for a workforce to be in, but it needs to match what the community is through there.
Anybody else? Chuck, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
We're just trying to be really cognizant, right? And it's like, we started to take a look at vacant properties along 76, and it's like, how can we spur that development? Great. But then there's other ones that are blighted that are maybe required demolition, right? Is anyone going to take on that risk? And that's what we're seeing with a lot of the people that already own these hotels and motels. They know they can't be licensed as a hotel motel anymore, right? The city is pursuing those efforts. So they are even saying, I don't even want to demolish it, right? I want to just change the use on it. And we're not just going to allow that, of course, willy-nilly without going through any type of review process and making sure we're getting good input. So that's why we wanted to bring this to you today.
Yeah, so I could talk about this all day. So every time so there is a solution. And I would encourage you right away to contact the lodging association and meet with them. Okay, same thing with you at the convention center. Okay, meet with them because you're gonna get eye-opening, tons of experience with this. So every time we start to go through the solution, and this is gonna sound really terrible, but we end up with new people at the city. We gotta start all over. And really, it's gonna be the legal folks at the city who are gonna make this happen. So here's what happens. Put your map back up there if you can. That shows all the lodging facilities.
Yeah, the yellow dots there.
All those dots? Well, half of those are not lodging facilities. It's places where people live. Okay? And so I heard you say, well, we need to have sales tax revenue, but what happened at some point in time is we wanted to regulate those, and there's a difference between a hotel and a living space. School buses do not show up at hotels. People do not bring their own furniture to hotels. Gardens are not planted at hotels, okay? And so these are truly living spaces today, but the city's never been able to get them out of the lodging category. And you gotta get, before you can make any progress with them, you've gotta get them out of the lodging category, because anytime you wanna regulate them right, you're gonna come after the lodging state, and they're gonna fight with you, okay? And I'll give you the greatest example. Today, there's a rule on the books that says every one of my customers that checks in, I have to check to see if they're a sexual predator, and I have to then post, if they are, I have to post that at my front desk, okay? Well, no, we're not gonna do that. No place in America does that. But that happened in Branson, Missouri, because you're trying to regulate those people who are not lodging anymore. They're coral facilities, converted one-room apartment living. And so, is there some advantage? We do have folks who work at our facilities who live there. Okay, the real benefit is, the real problem with some of those, and why they're not all that nice, is you're still trying to regulate them as lodging, and they don't have cooking facilities. And truly, if you want to incentivize, there are several hundred places that people could stay out there. If you could figure out how to cooperate with the business and build a separate building on their property that was just cooking facilities. And out of Silver Dollar City, if you look at what they built, there's a central area that's just cooking facilities. Because it's terrible to have one of those places that has no cooking facilities, and people are trying to stay there, the J1s, the H2Bs, whoever. Now, Penley did a pretty good job, and they're off the strip. And so that doesn't bug me too much. And they took one room, they put cooking facilities in every room. I don't know if you've been in their rooms. The rooms are pretty darn nice. There's 300 of them, and they have some issues there just because of the price point and who lives there. But are they about full? They're about full. And so then there's a whole bunch of the workforce who lives at Penley. Hall of Fame is about to do that same thing. The same people bought that. They're going to try to turn it back into something. And I don't know if they're going to put cooking facilities in every room. But the rest of us are all dying to have those kind of facilities, because it puts a worker close to us who can walk to work. And okay, so that's a diatribe. And I would just encourage you again to have a discussion with the lodging association, but you've got to get these people out of the lodging category. It's a living space. And part of that is a redefinition at the state level as to what the definition of permanent guest is. And the state lodging association is on board as well, because this is not a problem that just occurs in Branson, Missouri. Springfield has the same problem. Kansas City has the same problem. Brookfield, St. Louis, all have these problems where you had hotels that failed and they became some sort of living space for folks. If you want, and so I think there's only three solutions. One is you have to have a good hotel, or you have to have a good living space, or you need a bulldozer. That's the only three things.
Well, I think you said it best before when you said if you talk about it, you're going to be willing to do something about it. And we already contacted the Lodging Association and, Lori Hayes, even the executive director, put a quote in our press release for lodging safety, right? And we're working with her separately. I'll tell you, they're gonna pass a whopping probably 5 bills this session. So as much as I'd love to pursue that on the state level, and we have a lobbyist, and that's part of our priorities actually, we've contracted them with, time is of the essence.
So I get all that. Senate is in a mess right now. I actually happen to be the chairman of the Missouri Hotel and Lodging Association legislature. And we're 10-0 because we go with things that people that have no, what should I say? There's no controversy. Okay. So if you want to get a living space into a living space, or if we want to redefine the definition of a permanent guest, and the Lodging Association is in favor of that, we have a chance. We'd have to put it on some other bill.
We're getting police and fire with all the resources, and also some of the horror stories that we're hearing from this, which I'm not even going to get into as this meeting's being recorded. But like the city has a liability to follow the books of the law, and that's why we're moving full speed ahead, absent of state any type of action. And thankfully, you are the chair of that. So I'd love to see that go through. We would 100% support that.
Well, and so the other side of that though, Mark, is what Joel Harnicle told me is that there's some physical reason at the state level that you have to go to the state to get them not to be lodging facilities, but to be apartments, because basically apartments. And so if you really look at the definition of a hotel or a lodging facility in the state of Missouri, every apartment complex could be a hotel. And the legislature did not give them the guidance that we would have loved to have had. And that's where it starts. Somebody needs to propose a bill. Okay? And until somebody proposes a bill, so cities started that kind of thing 3 times. Okay, I'd love for us to have something we could get a sponsor for and take up there. And then you guys can put them in their own category and you can regulate them the way you'd like to live. That's the way it is. Or you have to take them and figure out how they really are apartments and start in that. Okay? Because you're gonna butt your head against the wall if you want to regulate them too much. Because lodging's gonna go, wait a minute, that makes no sense to us. So, okay, I'm sorry, but that's my diatribe. That's
You're an expert on that.
That's my, yeah, I lived that whole deal. So, okay, any more on Mark?
No, and I just want to appreciate you taking the time to take this, because this is why we wanted to come here. We not only put this on your radar that we're looking into this, but encourage you and anybody else to come to future discussions and really try to attack this in a way that makes it hit the vision of the core community. So
My goal is to quit going to meetings where people talk about bad hotels, right? Okay? Ann.
Yes, I will make this brief and I will make this a high point to end the meeting on, since I got moved to the bottom of the agenda. A couple of months ago, I mentioned I think at this meeting, that I had a chance to talk to Senator Esslinger about this project. She was basically stumping for her reelection that's now been changed, but at the time she mentioned $17 million that she had appropriated from the state for Reed Spring VOTEC educational facility. And she said she was able to do that project because there was a lot of community support. There was a lot of public-private money already invested and committed. And I said, hey, I've got a project like that. Let me tell you about 76 revitalization. And so she agreed to meet with me, and I got with Jonas, Argis, and Monica and for a little pre-meeting planning. And we met with her first week of December and presented her with this presentation. I have some extras if anybody's interested. It's about 30 pages, and I'm not going to go through it today because you all have been sitting here long enough. I'm even going to stand because I have been sitting long enough. And what she said was, it's got all the markings. So this isn't a grant. This isn't any kind of special funding project. This is her as our senator and chief, I think she's chair of appropriations, or she was last year. And she's on the appropriations committee of saying, this is something we want in the Missouri state budget for my district because it's going to be good for my district for any number of reasons. So it doesn't require a lot of the things that we've been talking about. It just requires some advocacy from us and from her and from other elected officials probably before it happens. It could be exactly zero that we get. But what she told me after our first meeting was ask for a little more because I'll have to negotiate this thing down. We started out asking for Reed Springs, something in the 40 million category, and I think they ended up with 17. And she said it's got to be something that we can see action on immediately. They don't want to give us money in 24, 25, and for something we're not going to build until 30, right? So what else did she say? Oh, she wanted it on one sheet of paper. So can't blame her for that, right? So here's that one sheet. I think I have enough. Give you one and then let them pass along for everybody. And then I sent this up to her right before Christmas. And that's when she needed it. She wanted it before the end of the year. So that's the other reason it hasn't come to this board much, but I thought you should know about it. And I thought you should know what we're asking for. So I made the assumption that folks in the Missouri legislature knew what Branson was and a little bit about us. So I jump right into this one sheet by just saying that this is a proven revenue producing economic development and infrastructure improvements that's happening through a public-private partnership already. And I give a little bit of the background, and we've talked about background already today because Jeremy highlighted it. But basically it's the strategic plan, it's the comprehensive plan, it's the formation of our CID. It's 8 segments. So you were right, Alex, your segment that you were calling 7, it used to be segment 7 and 8 for this project. Yeah. And I've included that here too. And it is shovel ready because what I've asked for is money for segments 1 and 2. To the right of the background, you'll see a pretty colored chart because she said that was important to get people's attention to. She gave me some great tips because I'm not a lobbyist and I have not ever worked in the political arena, but she said, make it pretty, make it colorful, and make it brief. So here's just and I made some guesses at these things, and none of this is etched in stone. These are all estimations because you might say, I'm not sure it's going to be $63 million for segments 4, 5, and 6, right? Doesn't matter at this point. We're dealing with big rounded numbers just to give them a feel for the project. So I could say that segment 3 was complete and we spent $12 million. And the 76 CID tax paid for that. What I'm asking for that's in bold type is $37 million for our segment 1 and 2 because she said that's big. And that's why State of Missouri could be the funder. Maybe it's a long shot. Maybe we'll get a portion of that at best case. If we get half of it, I'll be dancing in the street. That includes Waterline and includes the other, so it's more than the 32 we were talking about. And then just made some wild projections about what 4, 5, and 6 might be, and 7 and 8. And that $157 million is important because she also needed to show ROI. And so $157 million basically means that when we started on this project way, way, way back, it was all 8 segments. It was an $80 million project. A couple people in this room might remember. Now it's really twice that. So I talk about the goals. We all know those goals as well, but she wanted to be clear on those. And then I presented the problem. She says, you got to let us know that we're solving some problem for you. Well, here's the problem. COVID-19 killed our tax revenues. Construction costs have gone up 31%. Interest rates have gone up 20%, and all of that was detailed in this big deck with national figures. I didn't come up with those out of my head. That's the real deal. And then this last bullet under the problem is really what Gail's said at the board a few times and is absolutely true. Unless we find some additional funding sources, the community will need to choose between greatly reducing the scope of this project or significantly delaying its construction and completion. And then I always add to that is construction doesn't get cheaper the longer it takes or the further off you put it, right? It only gets more expensive. So who benefits? We got visitor, resident, business attraction, and public tax growth is a big deal, of course, in Jeff City, because you'll see on the back how much that can mean to them. The results to date is why I could say it's a proven project, right? Because the master plan, when we even approved it at City Council in 2014, started bringing business to Highway 76. It got the interest of Kuvera Partners, and we got the aquarium, Wonderworks, Beyond the Lens, and many more. We had a lot of nice development in the late 19s and 20 because of that announced project. And then, lovely as it is, the revitalization of segment 3 produced a 64% increase, and Sherry's verified that pre and post completion. Now, the nice thing that we know is that COVID was right in the middle, and we had a great boom right after COVID, right? So segment 3, you know that happened completed during COVID. So pre-COVID and post-COVID, we took advantage of too. But the fact is, 64% increase. So that'll get their attention. Then the other thing that Senator Esslinger coached me to do was talk big numbers. We're used to big numbers in Jefferson City. So I went to Jefferson City's numbers and I used some of those. All of the things on side 2 that are talking about tourism impact are from studies that the Missouri Department of Tourism has done. So they're probably numbers that our legislators are somewhat familiar with too. Tourism, and these are all from 2022, visitors inject $29.5 million per day into the Missouri economy. 40.1 million visitors spent $10.8 billion in Missouri in 2022. Tourism is a big deal in Missouri. I think it's second to agriculture, if I remember. So wanted to remind them of that, and know that when I learned a little bit, and Alex probably knows a whole lot more about it, Mark too, but when you're doing economic impact studies, there's direct and indirect impact, right? So when they get to these really big numbers, it's direct plus indirect. It's all the employees, and then it's all the money they spend, and it's all those tax revenues from their spend. So I think they go 2 or 3 levels deep to come up with some of these big numbers, but they are nice big numbers. And if it's what our lawmakers are used to looking at, I didn't want to disappoint. Like, this was a tiny little effort. And then, even more exciting, I think, for all of us, is that Branson and Taney and Stone County contribute quite a bit to that. And those numbers were highlighted in the tourism report studies too at the state level. Branson hosts 19.7% of visitors to Missouri. That was in 2022, again, 2022 study. It's second only to St. Louis at 22.5% and ahead of Kansas City at 15.5%. So Branson deserves attention in Jefferson City for tourism because our total economic impact, and again, this is impact that is direct and indirect, would be $3.6 billion annually, because based on their own numbers and their own studies. And so then I jumped down to the next chart, the blue top and the orange bottom, and said, if the impact at the state is 1.5 billion, Branson area's share of the tourism market is 19.7%. According to their study, that's $295 million. And our 76 entertainment district is 36.4% of Branson total taxes in 22 as well. Tried to keep all that consistent. So this district is responsible for $108. Then I go below and talk about a little bit more of the direct tax revenue, and these will be the numbers that you're a little bit more familiar with, which would be what we get from our 76 ECID, tourism, retail sales tax, City of Branson tourism tax, and state of Missouri's. That comes to 66 million, or did in 2022. So then I could pull all of those numbers together and come up with an ROI, which was an important figure for Esslinger, and it came to 308% by, of course, on a what did I have here? In 10 years, I think, right? Yeah, 2035, a little more than 10 years. We're up at over a 300% ROI. So this went to her. She's supposed to be working for IO, a follow-up to her chief of staff. I know Jonas is working it up there too. He called me the other day and said he was at the governor's office and he was planting seeds there as well. Again, it's a long shot, but it was worth a little bit of work and a little bit of time, and it might produce something for us. And I think some of this information is good for all of us to know, because Branson and 76 is very important at the state level, and certainly our region and our tourism is important too. So maybe something will happen. Keep your fingers crossed, say your prayers, and more importantly, if you have the opportunity to talk to any of our elected officials or anybody else that's got some money they might want to throw at us, use this and let's see what we can get. There's no harm in asking, and if you don't ask, you never get it.
Into your future employment as a lobbyist. Nice work.
Well, Jonas coached me a lot.
That didn't matter, you know.
And Senator Esslinger, was great too. And I know she's not going to be our senator, and she's taken the Board of Education job, but she's still there for this term, and that's what we're trying to do.
Great work.
Good job.
Thanks. Fingers crossed. And if I get $37 million, don't put me at the end of the agenda.
You'll be writing the agenda.
This should have been the first agenda.
I want to get this so I don't get bumped anymore. At the end of a long meeting agenda. I thought you liked me, Gail.
You should get a bonus too.
I'll just take a small percentage.
I have no words. Okay. All right, any questions for Ann? The introduction of any new business.
Just my question back earlier for Michael, whatever they have that needs to be addressed. So.
Okay, Michael.
So a couple quick things. We proposed a hawk system on behalf of the city. We would like the designer to take it into serious consideration for pedestrian safety.
What is a hawk system?
So a hawk system is pictured here. It's basically like a signalized intersection, but it's not. It's for pedestrians only. Springfield has, I believe, 8 already, and they're adding more on Glenstone as we speak. They are proven track record there. We threw a little something in there for a delighter, is that, you know, we could do something different with the lighting on it, similar to what they've done in Europe, where we really bring the traction to it. Crosswalks are very controlled, but not to the point of roadways. So I think we could stretch that and really do something different. The ultimate goal is to do all 76 crosswalks with that, because we've seen failure of crosswalks. City of Springfield, there's 10 tons of crosswalk data that's there. We sent this to Jeremy in November, crosswalk stuff. We talked about crosswalks, proposals of the systems that don't work as well as we would hope that they work, that we have in place now, along with roadway signals and so on and so forth. We just ask that the board supports the city in that ask. The other thing, as far as new business, although it doesn't go through a formal process with you all, as you know, we had a pre-meeting as we went through this. We talked about a timeline update. It was a little bit looser than I would like, and I'd like the board to consider, are you okay with the timeline that she presented? As construction documents could come faster, but we do definitely need to get taken care of the utility discussion, utility alignments. They should get all in line, and it should do very well, but sometimes that is. And of course, we're going after the easement agreements and consolidations of businesses. We had discussed that there were some concerns with some of the businesses that were there that you heard come up today. And again, we would say that the areas that are the delighters or the activity centers would be the first area that we go after and make sure that we have people on board for that. Finishing up the responsible part of making sure that budget items are taken care of. I would like the board to be well aware that we've spent 57% of Jeremy's total budget, leaving 42.4%. That is what I was asking for her to address, is that we're okay in budget. I think she took it more as, are we okay with budget along the corridor? Again, the direction from the city is going to be back to Jeremy is to, it is time not to wait to 90% plans to make sure that we are in alignment. If we're putting $1 million gateway on the front, can we still make sure that that works in the overall budget? And it's time to basically make sure that the size or the square footage or the scope of this matches your overall budget. So those are the asks that are coming from the city to Jeremy, moving forward on that. And that's the end of new business for the city.
Okay, what questions do you all have? Steve, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just the concern of.
Okay, it was not that plan. It was that what he was suggesting.
Yeah, of that, and just in general, the things are coming in very fast. Doing that, and you're addressing the timeline of that. I think the timeline looks great up there, but and they had the caveat of the right of ways of that. I think we just need to be aware. My concern is to make sure that the city and Gale City Fargo, that the city engineering and Michael and that group is driving this to make sure that the design firm is staying in line with what is needed.
And then again, we are doing, the only other thing that the city had brought up is you are doing something different that has never been done before. And I was interested to see today if anybody brought it up, and it didn't. But those hash marks that are there with the wide turning for buses and so forth, you have not done that on any other segment, nor do we have any instances of any of that in the United States now. So it is something that they're pushing forward with. They like it, but that is cause and effect from a road diet. So as you push those narrow lanes in, all of a sudden your turning radius has changed quite a bit. So that's why you're seeing that. And I just want the board to know that that's what those things are that you're looking at. So as you look through and you see all these zebra striping that's in there, that is future maintenance, and that is future things that have to be marked that way for vehicles not to go in. The city brought up the concern, and it was said that the spirit of the 76 was drive consolidation, which we agree with. As far as the road diet, so on and so forth, the road diet gives them more area to do decorative items that are in there, more green space, more trees, so on and so forth. But I do want to make you aware that that train is leaving the station. I'm sorry to make a reference to a train, as we have a train plaza, but now is the time. And this meeting, although it felt a little unnatural, I think, like, I was presented with this and I looked back at the bills for December, and I was asking, why have we spent X amount of money with certain companies? And it was because this was in production. And I said, let's see where they're at today. And then we streamlined to this. As of Monday, as we invited Ann back in and Gail back in, so it wasn't like a super surprise that, boom, here it is, that we went over those things. And as you can see, things are still continuing to evolve, which I expect in design to continue to evolve. As far as street lighting and some of the things that you brought up, the city does not have any copy of any plans for street lighting or any lighting that's along there at this time. So some of those things may be chosen, but the city also realizes that this is a partnership, and that the partnership is that about the design stuff that, I hate to say above ground, below ground, but the design stuff above is your all forte. This is your business. This is the vision for the next 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever the shelf life is on that. So we thank you for your support. I was super excited about this, as Gail and Ann know. I really, really believe we have worked through 99% of the issues that will slow us down. So.
We were at 57, you said, in terms of fees, but you were saying, when you look at the schedule, compared to what they're deliverable.
Correct.
You see that they're on target, or they're going to be over budget?
Well, I was told at one time in the fall that I could have construction documents by the end of December.
That's
So,
That's what I heard too, so.
and now is that
So what happened?
I asked for, we asked for 2 slides in the slide deck. At Monday's meeting, they weren't there, and today's slide deck is what they are.
That was, I
So,
heard that too.
but again, I want, the direction needs to not only be from the city, but also from the board is when is the finalized? And I also heard Jeremy say that she was comfortable with if we were able to go out and get the easements quicker, that her team could speed up and align. But as we finish this most important part that's here, let's make sure that if we need to amp up the number of meetings that are with the board and with Ann for creative stuff, things that are there, is that we do that, right? So as you all talked about, hey, we see a whole bunch of concrete that's brushed concrete. That was not a direction by the city by any means. That was just what came out in the plan. And so I would never hamper design, but you do need to keep design in line with budget. And that's where we need to come back to budget and timeline.
Yeah, I mean, you think about time is money in terms of engineer.
Correct.
Because we thought we were gonna have it in December. And also when I saw the schedule for the first time today, what changes, how everything got pushed back.
Mhm.
I mean, I was shocked how far back. So in other words, if we don't have the drawing by December, and then all of a sudden we're gonna have this, and it's gonna be this, and it's gonna be this. And I'm just shocked. You know, even Tom Beck, the first thing he say, I heard this thing, but when are you guys gonna start? And so everybody is and it just seemed like that's the first thing I noticed with the day and that schedule. By the way, I didn't take a picture of the PowerPoint, but it'd be good to get some of the stuff that Jeremy has, especially schedule and all that stuff. But I think it's interesting because as that was all new today.
Correct.
I just like, wow, okay. I thought we had it done. I thought we could do it. And I think that's, and that's why I'm asking you at 57%. I got a feeling they're gonna be asking, is it gonna be fast for the 100%? Is what I look at it. If they've spent that much time, they were supposed to be done by December, and they're not done, and there's, what percentage of the document done, do you think?
She presented it today at 60%.
60%. And
So-
she still needs 3 months though.
Yeah, but she told me the huge amount of the underground's done, and so I think her timeline was conservative. She had one in there that was like 4 months to do something. The wild card is the right-of-way easement agreement.
Yeah.
That's the wild card.
And utility companies is a little bit.
Yeah,
wild card too.
those
Those
are
the two
long
things we
going,
gotta
but
do.
those are,
not good.
it is a mistake for the city to go and have a sit-down meeting with the utility companies if everybody's not on board. There is nothing that we can do to derail conversation and good agreements that are there. They're sitting there waiting with fiber, gentlemen and ladies.
Yeah.
They are literally, I'm worried I'm gonna have FCC issues eventually. I said, no, you're not putting any more poles up, and you will, whatever goes above ground in segment 1 or 2, it's there and you will pay to move it if you want it there. So
Yeah, so, I mean, if I had my druthers, they would mobilize the last 2 weeks of November. They would begin to do their pre-work to get ready to dig the first week of December. And the second week of December, we would start really digging and then deal with the weather, however we have to deal with the weather.
but we got to get construction documents to final,
But-
the longer.
You got right away
That's what I would-
agreements
to go.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell Journey is the target. Okay. Yeah, that was me. I think she can do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's her timeline now, just so you know.
Well, she had up there January.
Yeah. She had January. so-
January, and it's going to take them a little bit to mobilize. It's going to take them a little bit to take out stuff that's in their way, and then they get going. And we can handle the construction in December. I believe we'd be okay.
If we had this type of year, absolutely. So far, it's been pretty good.
I think at this point, you guys can put up any time because we just like see something happen.
Does anything change in the duct side of that with the right-of-way acquisitions?
It could.
What was the question?
So does the duct lengths for all the utilities, does any of that change if we have issues with getting right-of-ways or easements?
It could shift items like vaults, things like that. So if somebody said, hey, Right now, she's done drive consolidation and they're showing X, Y, and Z that are there, a pop-up. And let's just take, for instance, the train plaza. He says, I'm not willing to give away entrance 2.
Yeah.
If she has something in there that changes and has to shift.
And he just said today that's not going to change from what they have on the drawing is what I understood.
Yeah. That conversation needs to be had with him. And we've talked about this multiple times that in our meetings, and Ann's been privy to that. I was like, have we talked to him? Because I do not believe all of his handicap spots are there. And he wanted, when we met with him, and that was many months ago, he was adamant he wanted a bigger entrance. And we have definitely taken 3 to 1 small entrance. So
I guess he told us today he's not giving up.
So I guess
my answer to that
if
is
it's in the right of way.
I could technically take away.
Right.
But I don't know if that's my role.
No, not with the guy that you're asking to.
Not with the business owner, because you wouldn't like me if I came to your business.
I mean,
this is the only way. I would rather it be a redesign there, but it shouldn't be a redesign. That's why it is so important that we go out and we beat on these doors and say, hey, how do you feel about this? The Duttons is another great example. We had a conversation with them. The last set of plans showed back with the single, and we said, that's probably not going to work. Well, that's your thing. You have to say this is the way it's going to be. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with making a business that has 2 go to 1 and you'll never get it signed.
Right.
Yeah, you just won't.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to do it. So where was I?
You're going to have to do it. Explain that.
Well, here's what I told them on the call. I said, look, there's 2 holy grails. Anything that people perceive could possibly reduce their revenue, you're never going to convince them to get rid of that. One is signage and one is entrances.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, I ain't giving up the entrance, you just as well stop the conversation, figure out how it works, and move on. Where you're going to spend your whole life trying to convince that person that it's not going to affect their revenue. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think that's, for me, that's the real issue of this, of those easements. And
Well, and that's the reason we didn't go back out and talk to these folks again, is because we had some preliminary conversations with most of them, and we didn't have the easements ready to go, and we didn't want to waste any more of their time. And we were trying to do it all at once and say, here's the basically final plan, here's the easement. And I'm sure there's going to have to be adjustments.
Right. I mean, they're going to give us a stack of all the easements. We're going to give it over, and we're going to run all together and see what we can get done with the company and see what. And then
that starts the 23rd of February.
Well,
the contract given to them is our first introduction between Journey and them, and that was why this was just getting in line, right? Make sure that there was no one here being like, oh my God, this whole thing and right? So.
Well, and last time we did easements on segment 3, I know they weren't done all that well, but I'm just saying it was the design firm, in this case it would have been Great River, and the city going and asking these property owners. But now we've got the third party that's going to be doing this.
That was with the board's
blessing. Yeah, so I just don't understand how that might
so.
differ. I mean, are they going to have negotiating power to say, yes, this will change, no, this won't change?
I would assume we would go with them, talk to them, and then that's the first run. As it was written from Great River, it was one time out, 2 phone calls, 2 emails, and then all the rest of the way it was change orders. On this one, I believe we'll go out, talk to them, and see if we can get something done. This is what this company does for a living, as you read, Billy, you were away in on it. And, if they're coming from out of town, they're going to mean business, right? They're sleeping in a hotel. It's time to get work done. So we'll see how many of those signatures we have. But I do give you the caveat of 3, you never did get all the signatures. So somewhere along the line, that may happen in here. And then it's, the decision of, well, then we just the sidewalk and move on or whatever it is. But I think for us, it is so imperative that it's Tom, correct, at the train?
Yes, Tom Beck.
I think he was shocked to see that again today.
He was.
Yeah.
Well, and we knew he would be.
Right.
I didn't know he was going to be here today.
I did not.
The reason we hadn't talked to him is because we were waiting on easements.
We're waiting on on the documents that are there. So the design is here, this is there. So, what was the ask today? The ask is this good enough to take a try at?
Yeah, and I think more is just the flavor of the whole thing, not just, there's a minor step, but the stakeholders gotta be addressed. Because the governor's not agreeing with you, with what you proposing. Right?
Well, yeah, she made that clear on her call the other day.
And that was 2 or 3 meetings ago, so we haven't looped back and fixed anything there.
So your concern on turn radiuses on the drives and how that changed, help me understand that just a little.
It's just very different, right? So it's a different maintenance aspect. It's a different look.
Maybe
you
walk it through. I still understand.
Yeah, so if you're walking along here, so Little Pete is a great example. So she pushed in on here, but if you look, our road actually exists under there. So why did we realign that? So when you pushed in, you ended up with this
a very sharp radius
that are there. So then as you go to each one, this is down to behind the Hampton, right? So then here's the original road, and then we pushed out there, and that creates these
Because those driveways are so wide for a pedestrian to cross.
I've never seen.
It creates safety.
I've never seen it on a roadway. Springfield's got something similar at an intersection. So we asked to see, is Pigeon Forge doing it? Is somebody else doing it? Where it really makes sense. And she says, well, we ran the turn radiuses. If you take and you close your eyes to this, we don't have this anywhere else on 76.
So all the one you see here is happening.
Yep.
Those are out turns is what it would be, correct?
Correct. So like as your truck's coming and you have a 53 footer to make this, you got to come out here, kiss that, and then the back of your truck's going to tip that and get back in line.
Yeah, when they did the downtown renovation, they made those curbs really low for that purpose because those are tight streets. So that was their solution, but then they ended up putting big blocks in there so that everybody didn't drive over it.
So, right. So like some of my concern was as people are driving along, and you're sitting in dead stop, are they going to try to inch in here and then they're going to try to merge? Or if I'm on Little Pete's Road that's here, am I going to try to just kind of keep pushing my way in? I mean, that's kind of how 76 is, but some of the concern there. And, do I love the road diet? This will be the last time you hear it from me. I don't love it. I came from the MoDOT that worked to get the biggest, widest streets that you can get.
Hey, Mike, are they going to reduce the speed with flow or traffic? Or are you going to repost it?
So that funny you say that. We gave them a bunch of data to see where backups were and so on and so forth. In mile vision, so we counted all the intersection and how many are in there. And the original hang up for the city and the fire department, the police department is that we had an island here. And I said, the city wants the island gone. Well, from our data, it says we only have 5 cars that back up. And so we went to Google Earth and I said, watch Google Earth in August. And we just went all the way down there. So, dropping the speed, is it a benefit in the winter? Yes. That's the thing, is if you're doing a road diet, you're trying to calm the speed. I don't believe we don't have a speed issue.
No, we do. I mean, if you think about when those pedestrian accidents happen, they happen after
in the middle of
dark
the night, correct?
or on the off season. I mean, people zoom down in the off season, and that's not going to change unless you shrink the road.
What is the speed limit today?
I believe 35.
35. Driving every day, it's 35.
I'd like for it to be like 32.
So
32 and a half, right?
Congested.
Yeah, so they really, what they really did is if you look at where these crosswalks are, we squeeze pretty hard in those. So you're going to feel it. And the drawings are up there where you go from something that's comfortable today. Yes, your truck can get through there to where I take it for instance of you drive on highway, if anybody's been going 44 up to St. Louis, you get in those little 10-foot lanes and you fit, but you're like, I don't really feel comfortable, right? So I think that's what that's going to feel a little bit. I really
Silver Dollar City, 76, 10-foot lanes. You feel that out there.
It's going to slow people down naturally.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want folks slowed down in front of their business? It's a more opportunity
It is a
to
good
see
thing.
your sign and pull
I'm
in your
not trying to
parking lot.
derail the design. I love the design. Gail heard it, Ann heard it. I love this. Let's make sure we're good, and let's go out and get those easements. I'm excited. This is the hump right here.
Well, and
Go get this in the utilities.
somebody said when they were commenting how different it's going to be, right? The green, it's not gonna be segment 3, oh, you can notice it happened because utilities went underground. It's gonna be significantly different.
Yeah.
And that's what we were going for, I think.
Yeah, as far as the city loving a fire pit, I don't know if I love a fire pit, but hey, we'll get there. Those are little
But
things.
this is a concern from you though, from a guy who's.
I'm concerned about if our name or engineering's name is gonna be on it and all the individuals that are in the city, safety, 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 safety. I want to be able to stand in front of the news and say, we have changed this corridor from not only a driving corridor to a pedestrian-friendly corridor, and it's going to be one of the safest ones in the United States. And I want to say that with a straight face and believe it.
Well, help us get there.
Help support my $80,000 in intersection.
That's
but I want to make the reality is it's not an $80,000 investment today. I bet it costs 30 to do the other one. It's a little push to get there. I can actually tell you it's $17,000 plus install because we just did one.
Okay.
Are you creating turn lanes to get the flow back going?
No.
What are you doing at the intersections?
But it's like here?
No, what are you doing on each end? Because you're bottlenecking everybody and then you're gonna open back up. And what's your plan?
That goes into the segment that already exists.
Yeah.
The next segment that we have is Gretna Road and 76 right up the street. That design, as soon as we are comfortable with this, I'm going to release that. And that's supposed to get a turn lane, and that was an agreement with MoDOT many, many years ago. Okay. So it should be able to let some of that flow out. And as you look Gretna Road or 176, what do we see there? We see large, huge developments with large, huge houses. Now we see everybody flowing down to the lakeside. Do I want to take people off of 76? Absolutely not. But I want to make that availability. I'm not stuck at the stoplight and I can't make a left because I don't have the option. That was the other probably big one. Pat Nash, originally they had taken away the turn lane completely. And I said, why can't we just leave the turn lane completely? Like just leave it alone and put it in there. Well, pedestrian safety. So we had compromised this point here because they were like, well, you never stack in there. And I said, well, I beg to differ. When you have 1,500 families at Whitewater on July 4th, plus 4 ball fields filled up with a couple thousand people, let's be realistic, right? With a baseball team with 20 kids plus all their parents and kids and so on and so forth, and 4 or 5 of those rocking plus people staying there. Plus, if you didn't know, it's safe to say because they have permits in, there's a new hotel going there.
So back to the Gretna 165, that was in the budget.
That is in the budget. And
okay.
Budget.
So why would we not be designing that from the Ferris wheel, the segment three there now? Why wouldn't we be fixing that to that stoplight to stop? Because you're gonna have road go narrow to wide for a block and a half.
Right. So that's the part that you all had already improved was down here. I know they left the area by Ruby Tuesdays undone, and that's why, right?
Yeah. But then you've got that little section in between there from the Ferris wheel to Ruby Tuesdays on through that.
That'll widen out.
Why wouldn't we be fixing that now in the same way with this?
Do you want to narrow it? So that's why we went after. So what we fixed was you had the crosswalk that was here, and that's why we captured that crosswalk, because they said, hey, let's make a second entrance there. I said, no, I don't think the entrance is there. The entrance was always meant to be right here. Right? Entrance at one. And
so what am I missing that we wouldn't be fixing that problem that is going to be a road narrowing to a wider road to a stoplight?
This is outside their scope.
I know that, but I'm asking from our position as a SID board, in knowing that we've got other sections to do on past this, why would we be addressing that segment? You're getting ready to redo that intersection. Right. Why wouldn't we be fixing that? I know it's outside of their scope, but why wouldn't we be doing that now?
Do you want to fund doing that now?
To me, it seems short-sighted that we wouldn't.
Like my understanding is segment 3 ended in here, and then we just have this little bit in here to take care of. Or are you wanting a redesign?
It seems to me.
It stopped at the Ferris wheel.
Right? Yeah, I get that.
So there's the Ferris wheel. We actually grabbed this piece.
So the turn lane, the turn lane is probably the significant thing.
Yeah, the turn lane would be up here and off.
So, and you guys had planned on doing that, I guess.
They had planned on doing that
way before my time.
But you're gonna have a wide road that's gonna go into a narrow one,
So,
correct?
so if you're doing that, just pure economies of scale, can you add this to this project when it's bid out?
I would prefer not to because it's different funds.
Yeah, I got.
And then MoDOT has a big say on the other side.
I see, okay.
And MoDOT is a funding mechanism for that in the tune of almost $1 million.
Okay.
And so what does it cost us to go back and fix that in between there once you've redone that?
We'd have to explore that with the design.
Is it possible to do that?
Sure.
I'd have to go look at it. I drive it every day. But I'd have to go back and look at it and see what that really means.
From an engineering perspective, you're talking moving curves. I mean, it's major. If you
I get
narrow it down, it's gonna be
I get
a
that.
major renovation, so you're talking, I mean, you won't have the,
But it's also, where do you stop? So,
Yeah.
so you move the curves there, then are you gonna go across and in front of the Titanic, you're gonna move the curves? Where are you gonna stop?
Yeah.
At some point in time, it's gotta.
Or do you try this in segment 1 and 2? This is new. It's something you haven't done.
I think this is a trial. Is my belief this is a trial in that, so.
But love it and own it.
Yeah, it's not gonna change. Yes, but it could influence what we do with the other segments.
I mean, this was what I said in the very beginning of March when I sat down with you all. I said, if you want to save a bunch of money, don't move your curbs. Because that's curbs, that ends up being sidewalk, that ends up being storm sewer, drop inlets get moved in, grates get moved in, all of a sudden it's all brand new, which is good. It is good.
And it gives us green space that we couldn't get.
Feels good to stand up, man. I agree with you. So with that, any other questions? Did I address yours as well as I could have? Probably not, so.
We're good. We're good.
I would, the only thing that I have to add is that we know that we're gonna have a different schedule in November and December for our meetings at the next board meeting. We'll figure out what those dates are, so that they don't conflict with Thanksgiving and they don't conflict with Christmas. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And to confirm, the next meeting is February 28th,
It'd be
the last Wednesday of the month. Okay, just wanted to make sure.